He struts onto the training grounds and the air instantly turns toxic. Every pair of eyes is locked on him, dripping with pure disgust for this total loser. He's the walking definition of a family disappointment. But then he drops a bombshell. He challenges his own kid brother to a death match. The crowd thinks he's signing his own death warrant. I mean, the little brother is a prodigy who's been sharpening his blade since he could walk. Thing is, our MC was a prodigy once too, before he flushed his talent down the toilet with booze women and endless partying, while skipping practice. But the second the bell rings, he actually sneers at his brother's attacks. He parries every strike like he's swatting flies. Then bam, he ends it in one cold move. The onlookers are paralyzed, jaws on the floor, trying to process the impossible. They think it's a fluke, pure luck, until one of the elite knights steps into the ring, and history repeats itself instantly. Christian folds him even faster, totally clowning him in front of the squad. That's the final straw for the Knight Commander. She's done letting this punk disrespect her unit. She's ready to humble him just like the rest of his family always does. In her eyes, he's just drunk gutter trash waiting to expire. She launches a full-blown blitz, raining down attacks. But he shuts it all down, leaving her and the platoon shook. Then, the split second, she loses focus. He slams a brutal headbutt right into her nose. She freezes, staring at her own blood, and calls a halt to the brawl, completely hyped to train this savage into an absolute weapon. But hold up, how did this total loser get so OP overnight? Simple, the lights are on, but a new tenant is home. A genius from the future has hijacked his body. See, Chris is the ultimate jack of all trades. He might look average, but he's got a cheat code talent that lets him master skills in a blink. Desperate for clout, he managed to wiggle his way into the hero's legendary party. He became the team's MVP utility player, handling the grunt work nobody else could touch, earning the title the Great Extra. But just as he was about to hit his prime and level up, it was game over. The Age of Destruction kicked off, led by the Demon King of Carnage straight out of the Magic Empire, tearing the Dominion of Light apart. Hero Evan wasn't strong enough to hold the line, and predictably, the party got wiped, letting the entire realm fall into the Demon King's clutches. On his deathbed, Evan had one final request. He wanted Chris to step up as the new hero. He prayed to rewind the clock and make it happen. But Chris, he wasn't vibing with that hero complex. After a life full of grinding and suffering, death felt like a vacation, sweet freedom from the misery. Even if he got a respawn, Chris just wanted to be a rich Nepo baby. That was his last thought before he faded to black and woke up in the past. Boom, he's reborn as a young noble in the Magic Empire. Yeah, the exact same empire where the Demon King of Carnage came from. For context, the Dominion of Light is human turf, while the Magic Empire is crawling with demons, aka fiends. And luck would have it, he landed right in the Dark Magic clan, one of the 12 pillars holding up the empire. Matching his creepy name, he realizes he's jumped back 15 years. That leaves him exactly 5 years before the apocalypse starts. So Chris got his wish to be a rich brat, but the body's original owner, a total nightmare. He's stuck inside Christian Van Baron Kazar. Browsing his memory files, Chris notes the middle name Van, which flags him as branch family status. The House of Count Kazar is an offshoot of the Baron County line, basically the heavy hitters of the Dark Magic clan. Even as a branch family, the Kazars are stacked with power, thanks to their rep within the clan. Their massive fortune just boosts their signal. To put it simply, every fiend in the empire knows not to mess with them. Now the family has 2 heirs on the board, but the oldest Christian is a walking disaster zone. But here's the kicker. In the original timeline, Christian gets taken out by his own kin. That's a major red flag for Chris, who just moved in, and is essentially looking at a death sentence. The guy just wanted the chill trust fund life without the drama. But crying over bad RNG won't save him. He needs a survival strategy fast. He's got a 2-year buffer before the scheduled murder. Since the hit happens inside the House of Kazar, a clan obsessed with honor, it's obvious Christian was such a loser. His own family clipped him to save face. So Chris figures if he flips the script and acts like a decent human, keeping his head down, he might dodge the execution. With the how not to die plan in place, Chris pivots to dreaming about blowing his cash on a luxury life, but reality is about to punch him in the face. Flash forward to the apocalypse. The Demon King of Carnage triggers an era of total annihilation, launching a war to sacrifice humanity and finalize Ragnarok. By the time the world woke up to the threat, it was already game over. Both the Dominion of Light and the Magic Empire were wiped off the map, casualties of the Demon King's ego. If Chris wants to keep breathing, he needs a strategy to halt this incoming doomsday. The Demon King isn't just a powerhouse solo act. He commands a massive legion of loyal fiends from the Magic Empire. The only way to stop this madness, Chris has to level up and surpass the Demon King of Carnage himself. He needs to seize the throne of the Demon Emperor and dominate the hierarchy of the Magic Empire. He has 5 years on the clock before the destruction begins, enough time to cook up a master plan. If he pulls this off, the entire Magic Empire falls into his hands. Cut to reality, Christian is getting absolutely roasted by his father for sneaking out while grounded. The patriarch can't stomach the fact that Chris dared to show his face. Without atoning for the humiliating mess he caused recently, Count Khazar drops a final ultimatum, making it crystal clear one more screw-up, and Chris loses his head literally. The crushing, suffocating pressure from the Count forces Chris to tremble instinctively. He finally chokes out an apology, owning up to every mistake he's made. Chris is desperate to repair the bridge with Count Khazar, because he has to scrub away the trash reputation attached to Christian. It's the only path to his master plan. He keeps apologizing, hoping to crack the Count's icy exterior, but cheap words aren't cutting it. The Count isn't buying a redemption arc after the chaos his son caused. Internally, Chris is panicking, wondering what kind of insanity the original Christian pulled to destroy his father's trust completely. The rumors about this guy are so wild that Chris can't even pinpoint the latest scandal, so he plays the amnesia card. He claims the memory loss wiped the slate clean, so he doesn't recall the specific event that enraged his dad. He adds that, while trying to recover his memories, he realized he's been living like garbage. He takes full responsibility for tarnishing the family name. But even with this confession, the Count remains stone cold. He's heard this sob story 1,000 times. Realizing talk is cheap, Chris goes nuclear. He demands to be thrown into the punishment cave for a full month, to prove his transformation is legit. Let me break down the punishment cave for you. It's a high-security hell for fiends. Zero light, absolute silence, complete sensory deprivation. Most captives lose their minds and descend into madness within days. Knowing this, Count Khazar doubts Chris could survive a few hours, let alone 30 days. Chris calculated the risks, but this suicide mission is his only shot at earning his father's trust. He's all in. Count Khazar, having heard Christian make empty promises before hesitates. History says this ends in disappointment, but he decides to entertain this final gamble. But there's a catch. If Chris walks out of that cave the same loser he walked in, he's exiled from the clan. And in this world, exile is just a slow execution. Christian has a laundry list of enemies, and the second the clan's shield drops, they'll hunt him down. Still, our boy accepts the terms, but he counters if he survives. He wants a favor. The Count scoffs at the audacity but agrees, assuming it's impossible anyway. Later, while Chris chills in his luxury suite, a servant announces the cave is ready. Enter Cox, the half-vampire butler and loyal servant of House Khazar. Chris nods, grabs his gear, and heads out, slinging a bag over his shoulder. As he strides through the halls, the staff and family members start gossiping. They're convinced the family failure is plotting another scheme. They bring up the recent disaster where he insulted the heiress of the Poison Magic clan. It was such a catastrophe that Count Khazar had to personally bow and beg for forgiveness. No wonder the Count was seeing red and dismissing Christian earlier. That level of humiliation is enough to make a patriarch wish for death. The peanut gallery in the back is already placing bets convinced Christian won't survive 48 hours in the punishment cave. But our boy just flashes a cocky smirk, knowing he's about to completely flip the script on their expectations. Lurking in the shadows, his little brother watches every move like a hawk, analyzing the situation. They finally reach the mouth of the punishment cave, a location that practically screams, "Abandon all hope." Two towering Death Knights guard the entrance, looking absolutely terrifying, but they step aside to let Chris pass without issue. Before he can step into the darkness, a voice cuts through the silence. "Let's meet this pint-sized menace." That's Thurn Van Bar, Christian's blood brother, and the family's so-called golden child student. Forget the pleasantries though, because out of nowhere this kid launches a surprise attack on his big bro. He halts the razor-sharp tip of his blade inches from Chris's eyeball. On the outside, our MC is stone cold, but internally, his soul just left his body from sheer terror at that near-death experience. Recovering instantly, Chris maintains his poker face and demands to know what the kid wants. Thurn is just here to trash talk, reminding his older brother exactly how pathetic he is. He warns him that, if he drags the family name through the mud again, he's dead meat. Watching this aggression, Chris realizes something. This brat was definitely the one who killed him in the original timeline. Chris recognizes that energy. In the Age of Destruction, Thurn was a notorious fiend legendary for his dark curse magic. Anyway, Chris hits him with a cold, piercing glare that actually makes Thurn flinch, maintaining the alpha vibe. Chris steps into the cave and slams the door shut. Thurn is left standing there, absolutely fuming, completely shocked by this new defiant version of his brother. Inside, Chris navigates the pitch-black void, stripped of sight and sound. He's left with nothing but a faint tingling sensation in his fingertips. It's a calculated design choice. Prisoners need just enough sensation to handle their inventory. Without that, they'd never find their food and would just wither away. For a normal person, this sensory deprivation would break their mind in hours. But Chris, he's built different. After his years as a treasure hunter, this is child's play. In fact, total isolation is exactly what he ordered. It allows him to turn his gaze inward, the only way to repair this absolute train wreck of a body. Sure, it's going to be a grind, but relying on his legendary divine hand medical skills. and his modified bone compression art, he's confident. Plus, thanks to his newfound wealth, he's loaded up on premium magic stones, making this recovery mission a total breeze. He didn't think he'd snag these stones given their insane price tag, but that's the perk of having deep pockets. Back in his past life, he and Hero Evan scraped and clawed just to get one. Step 1. Deploy the white magic stone to purge the toxins. It's tedious work, but absolutely critical. He has to scrub every ounce of poison from his system using white mana. One slip-up equals agonizing pain, but for a pro like Chris Easy Mode, he navigates the process without breaking a sweat. Meanwhile, back at the estate, Count Khazar grills his butler for an update. The servant confirms Christian went into the punishment cave without a fight. He predicts the boy will be so broken he won't even have the energy to scream for help. This grim forecast sends the Count spiraling into panic mode. He starts second-guessing his decision to exile his son. He remembers when Christian was a bright-eyed prodigy with limitless potential, and can't figure out where it all went so wrong. He begins to wonder if that raw talent was actually a curse that destroyed his ego. But whatever the cause, the Count decides he'd rather see his son dead than living a crippled, miserable existence. He wants to believe the boy, but the trust is gone. It's not the first time he's been played by his son's silver tongue. Desperate, the Count asks the butler if Christian took anything with him. The butler tries to stall, but cracks under the Count's intense interrogation. He admits Christian smuggled in magic stones, specifically dream stones, known for inducing powerful hallucinations. Terrified that Christian is chasing a high or planning something reckless, the butler urges the Count to open the cave right now. Count Khazar shuts him down cold. Even if Christian is scheming, the Count figures it's better to just let the kid rot in there. 30 days crawl by. Count Khazar is already lurking outside the cave entrance before Chris even shows his face. The old man is convinced his son is broken, mentally wrecked. But get this, Khazar is totally thrown off when Christian struts out of that darkness wearing a massive grin. It's a shocker, but there is no denying it. Christian walked the talk and came back a totally new man. The Count catches that fire in his son's eyes, a spark that has been missing since Christian was just a toddler. The glow-up is impressive, but Khazar isn't dropping his guard yet. He is dead set on the idea that surviving 1 month isn't enough to prove the trash has actually turned into treasure. Christian doesn't blink, though. He vows to grind even harder if that is the price. He knows. His dad thinks he barely scraped by in there. But honestly, Christian was thriving. He was so busy training, he didn't even have time to be bored. First, he min-maxed his body for swordplay using the white mana stone. Unlimited stamina unlocked. But the real MVP was the Dreamstone. The butler tried to ban him from taking that narcotic rock inside, but Christian is glad he stuck to his guns. The hallucinations from the stone basically speed ran his evolution. Plus, he managed to forge 2 separate mana cores inside his body. Christian is practically patting himself on the back for dominating that death cave. He is convinced his brain is massive. I mean, dual cores, that is a 1 in a million roll. Because of how rare it is, he cloaked his light core inside the dark one. If anyone found out, heads would absolutely explode. His winning streak kept going too. He sensed someone outside was praying. The hallucinations would break his mind. But Christian used that spite as fuel to level up. Back. In reality, Christian is ready to cash in that favor. He asks the big question: he wants access to the Black Swamp Knights training facility. Count Khazar's face instantly sours at the sheer audacity. In the Count's eyes, a loser like Christian has zero business stepping foot on that hallowed ground. The Black Swamp Knights are top tier, one of the 3 elite orders, backing the Dark Magic clan. Only the best of the best flex their skills there. But Christian holds his ground. He isn't asking for a badge, just a visitor pass to train. He argues that soaking up the vibes from elite warriors will be good for his growth. After a tense silence, the Count caves. But he drops a lethal warning. Embarrass the family in front of the knights and you die. Christian accepts the terms. But before his dad can bounce, he pushes his luck with one more request. Later, Christian rolls up to the training grounds. While he is minding his own business, the knights in the back start chirping, recognizing him as the infamous family disappointment. They aren't even trying to whisper, while trashing the Count's son, which shows you exactly how savage the Magic Empire is right now. Around here, power is the only currency that matters. But Christian has an ulterior motive for being here. He needs to get into the library. His dad said the only way to unlock that door is to get a recommendation letter from Deputy Commander Mellon. That is the quest condition for the key. The library holds all the Khazar family's dark magic secrets. To learn the craft, Chris has to get inside. Chris is fine with the quest, but he is confused why a clan VIP needs permission slips. Then his dad reminds him about that time Christian pawned off legendary spellbooks on the black market. Yeah, even Chris has to admit, his past self was absolute garbage. The good-for-nothing label was totally earned. So now, the mission is securing that sign-off from the deputy commander. Suddenly, Chris's little brother Thorn is on the scene. The kid doesn't waste a second before roasting his older brother with some colorful insults. Naturally, Christian finds dealing with this brat a total drag, but as he processes the situation, a smirk creeps onto his face. This might actually be the opening he needs. Thorn struts up, demands he turn around and get lost. He tells Christian not to waste the second chance he barely survived inside the punishment cave, but Chris stays sassy, making the little brat flinch by dropping the bomb that Dad was the one who gave him the green light to be here. Right then, suddenly, a major player stomps onto the scene. Her death stare is sharp enough to slice steel, and she makes it crystal clear. She absolutely despises seeing Christian here. Count's permission slip, totally irrelevant to her. Just so we're clear, this terrifying powerhouse is Deputy Commander Melon. She is radiating intense 4-star dark energy, trying to crush Chris and send him running home to mommy. But let's be real, it takes way more than that to rattle our MC. The crowd watches stunned as Christian stands there stone cold against her aura. Even Melon flinches, realizing just how unbothered, almost psycho he looks. Christian casually says hey and kicks things off. He owns up to his trash reputation and knows nobody trusts him, but he is ready to show everyone he deserves a spot on these training grounds. Christian drops a bombshell. He wants to fight one of the warriors, right here, right now, to prove his worth. Obviously, Deputy Commander Melon laughs it off thinking he is just clowning around. But Christian isn't playing games. With total composure, he tells her to chill with the dark energy pressure. Then he humbly requests a straight-up fistfight. Claiming his mana is fried from years of partying and being a degenerate, Melon actually considers it. Even in a duel, damaging the family heir is risky business, so she double-checks if he is seriously ready to throw hands with zero magic. Christian stays cool as a cucumber, announcing he wants to pick his victim, his annoying little brother Thurn. This absolutely triggers Thurn, who is seeing red at the idea of being challenged by his loser big bro. Even Melon thinks Christian just signed his own death warrant. She warns him to pick someone else, since Thurn is already a legit 2-star user. For context, hitting 2-star at 13 years old is insane unless you are a prodigy. Most people, whether they are 13 or 23, cannot even dream of that power level. But as we know, Christian is built different. He stands his ground, insisting he needs to fight someone out of his league, because that is the only way to silence the haters. Beating Thurn is the perfect power move. However, he drops a taunt, unless of course Thurn is too scared to fight his own flesh and blood. Thurn instantly takes the bait ego bruised and accepts. Moments later, they square up in the center of the arena. The other warriors form a ring hyped to watch Thurn wipe the floor with Christian and humble him. Before the violence starts, Christian clarifies the win condition. He suggests they go, until someone taps out. Melon, already sick of Christian's attitude, counters with a brutal rule: they fight, until one side is knocked out cold. She figures this gives Thurn the green light to absolutely destroy his brother without worrying about a surrender. Our MC, though, he is more worried about Thurn's safety. He does not actually want to hospitalize his little bro. Of course, this arrogance just makes Thurn absolutely furious, itching to teach his older brother a painful lesson. Chris sees his opening and initiates combat by slapping the soul out of his brother's body. It is humiliating, it is disrespectful, but the bell rang, so it is totally legal. Thurn swings back wild, but Christian effortlessly weaves past it with a simple lean back. Honestly, this match is practically rigged, but not how you think. As a 0-star scrub, Chris should be dead meat against a dark energy user. But take away the magic, different ballgame. Thurn's sloppy technique leaves him wide open, and Chris delivers a brutal knee smash straight to the gut. Chris is dominating this brawl because he has lifetimes of combat experience downloaded into his brain. Plus, if you count the secret light powers he unlocked in the punishment cave, he is technically hitting 3-star levels. So yeah, the brat never stood a chance. Thurn is looking totally wrecked after that combo, leaving the audience completely shook. Meanwhile, Chris starts throwing verbal jabs to tilt his brother even more. The trash talk is working like a charm. Inside, Chris is having a blast, watching the kid flail around. Thurn, however, is convinced that Christian is cheating somehow. Christian shuts that down real quick. No cheats, just a massive skill issue on Thurn's part. That burns. While Chris continues trolling him, Thurn snaps. He clenches his fist, leaking ominous dark energy, and throws a mana-charged punch. Chris sidesteps the lethal hit with ease. Thurn unleashes a relentless storm of fists, but to Chris, he's untouchable. Not a single scratch lands. Finally, Chris swats one punch aside like it's nothing, and after nullifying his little brother's dark energy in a split second, he delivers a devastating counterblow. That single strike sends Thurn hacking up blood before he faceplants into the dirt. The crowd instantly erupts into hushed whispers and wild speculation, convinced that Thurn must have slipped up or simply took pity on his trash-tier older brother. Seeing Thurn flattened by the family failure breaks their brains, but Deputy Commander Melon, she clocked exactly what just went down, and she is absolutely losing her mind over it. Chris, cool as ice, demands Melon confirm if he's passed the test or if there are still more hoops to jump through. Still reeling, Melon stammers out that he has indeed proven his worth. That validation sounds like a symphony to Christian. Now he's ready to execute Phase 2. Back in his quarters, Chris revels in finally hitting 1-star rank in dark magic. Since he's still not totally comfortable wrangling this dark energy, and clearing out the previous Christian's messy residue took forever, it was a grind. And as for dual-wielding the power of light, that's going to require a serious level up. Suddenly, his assigned maid, Marie, materializes on command. Plot twist, she's actually a high-level banshee. Chris can't help but feel a shiver down his spine, seeing that they're using a literal evil spirit as a housekeeper. It's so creepy he seriously considers asking the Count for a replacement. Anyway, he orders some juice to fuel up before his training session begins. Marie nods, but then drops a bomb asking if she should spike the juice with fresh human blood. She swears blood juice is a delicacy and keeps pushing for the upgrade. Christian, meanwhile, is totally grossed out by her morbid vibe and just demands plain strawberry juice. A bit later, as Christian heads out to grind, the butler creeps up from behind, suggesting he maybe skip it. The old man feigns concern, claiming Christian has been pushing his limits too aggressively lately. He puts on a show of being proud, acting touched by how diligent and sincere the young master has become, claiming he always believed in Christian, even when everyone else called him a loser. Christian, however, sees right through the snake's hypocrisy. He shoots the servant a death glare, rejecting the fake validation. The butler scrambles to apologize, realizing he overstepped, and quickly retreats. But not before wishing Christian a good session. Chris gets a major bad vibe from that guy, even if he can't quite pinpoint the issue yet. Later, walking the grounds, he notices the shift. The way people look at him has become softer, submissive even. He realizes this is the perfect chance to win them over. Little by little, gotta strike while the iron is hot, right? He drops his gear and starts running sword drills. A lurking fiend spots him and sprints straight to Deputy Commander Melon to report it. Hearing that young Master Christian is back at the training grounds, Melon's expression darkens. Her curiosity is piqued. She can't deny how clean his movements were during the duel with Thurn. Sharp, calculated. She's dying to know what Christian's endgame is. What truly rattled her cage was how he casually dissolved his brother's dark energy at the critical second. That level of skill proves he dominated that fight from move 1. If that's true, he might possess the raw talent to rival Lord Eshed de Baron, the main family's golden boy. But then she remembers Christian is just a bastard who squandered his energy on a party lifestyle. There's no way he can bridge the massive power canyon, separating him from Lord Eshed. Melon steps outside, feigning ignorance of Christian's training. But the scene stops her cold. Christian has already flattened his opponent cannon. The spectators are jaw-dropped that he folded one of their own, a 1-star fiend. It's impossible to believe this outcast hit 1-star rank. Even Melon is stuck staring. Christian, however, is totally underwhelmed by these so-called elite Black Swamp Knights. Not a single one of them poses a legitimate threat. He loudly wonders if anyone here has the guts to actually fight. Naturally, the fiends get triggered instantly by the shade he's throwing. Furious at the disrespect, a massive fiend named Torin stomps forward to shut Christian up. Chris just smirks and beckons the big guy over. He is absolutely loving that these morons are walking right into his setup. Torin, thirsty for blood, swings his blade. Sparks fly as steel clashes against steel in a brutal rhythm. Chris smirks internally. He knew these guys wouldn't just hand over their secret arts on a silver platter. He is dissecting his opponent in real time, downloading every micro-movement and storing the data straight into his muscle memory. Bingo. It takes him less than a second to recognize the pattern. Torin is using the infamous mud swordsmanship style. That is some high-tier legendary tech. Now that he has got the blueprint, Chris decides to take it for a test drive immediately. He mirrors the move perfectly, delivering a surgical strike straight across Torin's mug. One hit and the mighty Torin is eating dirt. The spectators are shook jaws on the floor, including the Deputy Commander Melon. Reality check. She realizes Christian's win against Thurn was not just beginner's luck. The kid is lethal. But our MC, he just sighs. He actually used to respect these knights before he realized how basic they were. Now, they are just glorified XP farms. He turns his gaze to the top, throwing massive shade directly at Deputy Commander Melon. He roasts her training methods, calling her squad pathetic. The sidelines go silent. Everyone knows you do not beef with Melon and live to tell the tale. Melon agrees. She is convinced these little wins have inflated Christian's ego to dangerous levels. But our boy is not just talking smack. He is ready to back it up. He looks her dead in the eye and issues a direct challenge. Hook, line, and sinker. She snaps, swinging her blade with enough raw force to literally vaporize the ground beneath them. She is fully triggered now, weeks of humiliation from Christian boiling over into pure, unadulterated rage. That shockwave was a warning shot, a reminder that she could delete his existence in seconds if she wanted to. Chris does not flinch. He casually admits she has got the stats to crush him in a no-holds-barred fight. But then he pulls the rulebook card. Technicality time using dark energy against a 1-star novice is a major violation. Since he is technically a weak 1-star, her overpowered magic is officially off the table. She has to fight clean. He proposes a nerf wooden swords only. Melon, confident in her base stats, agrees to the terms. Even without her mana, she plans to shatter his legs into splinters. Enough talk, it is execution time. Fight on. Melon lunges, bringing her practice blade down like a guillotine. Clack Chris parries the strike, and they explode into a blur of motion too fast for the naked eye to track. The crowd is losing their minds because Christian isn't just surviving, he is actually going toe-to-toe with a deputy commander. Melon is starting to sweat. She is swinging for the fences, but she cannot land a single hit on this so-called weakling. It is total deja vu, just like his previous opponents, she is swinging at ghosts. Seeing her panic, Chris starts trash-talking mid-fight, which only tilts her further into blind rage. She loses cool and instinctively charges her blade with dark energy, a massive foul, but Chris sidesteps the smash with ease. He closes the gap, and Bam delivers a brutal headbutt right to the bridge of her nose. Blood sprays everywhere. It was not reckless, it was calculated. He knew that without her magic buffs, her physical defense could not handle a point-blank impact. 200 IQ play. If Melon was a pure tank build instead of a mage hybrid, that move would have failed miserably. But instead of freaking out over the blood dripping down her face, Melon starts cackling like a maniac. Chris actually finds the reaction kind of wholesome. He definitely did not expect the psycho laugh response. Game recognizes game. She finally admits she underestimated him big time. She promises to personally oversee his training, which is basically code for, I am going to make your life hell, to make you stronger. Then Chris drops the bomb. He points to a tiny scratch on her neck from the headbutt. If he had dipped his nails in poison, game over. She would be a corpse right now. Melon takes the L gracefully. She is ready to grant him whatever reward he wants. But there is a catch. She demands a rematch. Chris is down, but he has a counter demand. She agrees instantly. Seizing the moment, Chris drops the wildest request yet, kneel before me. The air freezes. That is an impossible ask. Her allegiance belongs to House Baron, the ruling family of the Dark Magic clan. Chris knows exactly what that look means, but he waves it off. Because when he takes over as the clan leader, he will be the one she serves. Melon is stunned. She thinks he is delusional. There are already 5 official young lords in line for the throne. They have pure bloodlines. Christian he is an illegitimate child, a bastard, with zero claim to the crown. Christian just flashes that wicked grin, reminding her that technically, no rule explicitly forbids a branch family member from seizing the title. Ambitions aside, the deal is set. Rematch confirmed. In exactly 1 month. 0 restrictions, no safety rails, just pure, unadulterated combat. And honestly, Melon is absolutely thriving on that idea. She's already picturing him eating dirt in a spectacular L. But Chris he just smirks and tells her to check her confidence at the door. Life comes at you fast after all. Dropping that little nugget of wisdom he dips, promising a rematch in exactly 1 month. Internally, he swears to show her exactly who the real boss is. Cut to the estate where Christian slides that shiny recommendation letter, straight from Deputy Commander Melon to his pops. But he doesn't just hand over the paperwork. He takes a moment to roast the fiend's trash fundamentals, suggesting they desperately need to grind their basics. Flashback to a bit earlier, Melon, fresh off her skirmish with Christian, spills the tea to the Count about his insane glow-up. Even with a garbage star rank, the kid was clapping enemies who had way better stats, and even Melon got a slice of humble pie from his unexpected skills. She admits the brawl was actually fun, even if taking that L caught her off guard. Back in the present, the Count is just dead-eyed, staring at his son, soaking in the silence, trying to process if this absolute unit is actually Christian. Finally, he breaks the tension and hands over the Holy Grail, the library key. Later, clutching that key feels like pure victory. But it isn't just about unlocking some books. He also secured the bag with Melon's trust. See, Melon isn't just some random NPC. She's royalty from the Dark Magic clan's main branch, a straight-up 6-star high fiend back in the Age of Destruction. If Christian wants to dominate the entire Dark Magic clan, having her in his corner is non-negotiable. She isn't fully simping for his cause yet, but he bets 1 month is plenty of time to seal the deal. Strutting away with that W, he replays, Count Khazar's expression confused, but definitely proud. Chris realizes that even demons have daddy issues and family bonds. And honestly, Count Khazar is miles better than the toxic father figure from his past life. Because of that, he vows to make the old man proud. Stepping into the library, Chris scopes out the forbidden loot grimoires, banned in the Dominion of Light. We're talking blood magic summoning curses, the good stuff. Scanning the shelves, he snags a specific title, but boom, jump scare. His evil spirit maid materializes out of nowhere, nearly giving him a heart attack. When he demands to know why she's lurking, she drops a fun fact. She used to be the head librarian right here. She also confesses she's crushing hard on Christian even though the feeling is 0% mutual. Doesn't stop her from aggressively flirting, which just makes him cringe. But getting back to business, she notes the book he grabbed is a 4-star dark magic tome called Binding Seal, and she's skeptical he can even read that high-level gibberish. Christian, activating full ego mode, declares he's a literal genius. Marie knows he's capping, but she plays along, hyping him up with fake enthusiasm. Curious, she asks, why that book? And he drops a cryptic one-liner, he's hunting a rat. Cue the dramatic tension. Cut to Chris grinding out his daily drills with the squad. He's mentally scrolling through his list of suspects, the potential snakes in the grass. Suspect number 1, Thurn, his little bro who hates his guts more than anyone alive. Suspect number 2, Cox the butler, an outsider to the bloodline but somehow has VIP access to the punishment cave. Sea fiends respect raw power, way more than social rank, so it's weird for Cox to be hovering around a weakling like Chris. Unless there's a puppet master pulling Cox's strings. Whoever it is, they want Christian buried. The biggest red flag, Cox slipped him a dreamstone right before he went to the punishment cave, which is basically an execution order. To flush out the traitor, Chris decides to method act as the useless scumbag his enemies think he is. If he starts self-destructing, they'll let their guard down, making it way easier to spot the mastermind. Suddenly, he stops dead in the middle of the workout, throwing a massive fit about how hard everything is. He rage quits the session, declaring it's nap time. The sudden shift leaves everyone confused exactly as planned. Later, at dinner, with the Count, Chris goes full brat mode. His dad is fuming, feeling like a total clown for believing his son had changed. Crushed by disappointment, the Count storms off. Watching his old man sulk, Chris actually feels a pang of guilt, but he knows this 4D chess move is necessary to save the family. He doubles down, spreading rumors that he's back on his toxic nonsense, harassing maids during their shifts and burning cash like it's Monopoly money. But here's the snag. Whenever he calls for booze, his personal maid serves him wine. That's basically grape juice. Chris keeps pushing for the hard stuff because being drunk is key to the trap. He's banking on the plotter taking the bait. Will wants them to believe he's relapsed into being the total washout they expect. Then bam, he flexes absolute mastery over the Binding Seal spell. The move is so clean it catches even his loyal maid completely off guard, leaving her shook that he's already conquered the technique. But Chris doesn't hesitate to start gloating about his genius, a narrative he's been pushing since day one. He reveals the truth while he was out there, causing chaos. He was secretly grinding, studying in the shadows to master multiple spells. But before he can pop the champagne, his little brother Thurn busts into the room unannounced. Christian flips his mental switch instantly. In a split second, he morphs from a sober mastermind into a wasted, degenerate mess, perfectly playing the role of the loser. Thurn's eyes narrow in disgust, fully convinced that absolutely nothing has changed with his clown of a brother. This intense, genuine rage from Thurn is actually good news. It proves to Chris that the kid isn't part of the conspiracy against him. Since Thurn is clean, Chris decides to loop him in on a slice of the truth, revealing there's a rat hiding in the mansion. A traitor praying for his downfall. Chris explains he's playing the reckless fool as bait, acting exactly how his enemies need him to be so they'll expose themselves. To sell the truth, he shows Thurn the wine bottle he's been nursing. He lets Thurn take a whiff to prove it's fake, just a prop to maintain his elaborately crafted facade. Chris still doesn't know who the snake is, but he knows the trap is working. Suddenly, a servant scrambles in after the sound of shattering glass. Christian snaps back into his drunkard persona, screaming at the servant to tell the butler he sent the wrong vintage, and to bring the right bottle now. The servant is apologizing profusely, stammering that Cox is currently tied up. Chris, channeling a sailor 5 drinks deep, decides to pay the butler a personal, chaotic visit. His brother stands in the background watching in total disbelief at how terrifyingly real this drunkard bozo act looks. When Christian finally corners Cox, he deliberately upends the wine bottle right over the butler's head, drenching him completely. He accuses the man of playing dirty games by trying to pass off the wrong wine. Cox apologizes, keeping his cool, and insists the correct bottle is coming. Chris isn't having it, he demands. Cox fetch it personally. Cox tries to maintain his composure, explaining he's in the middle of handling urgent business. He suggests a later delivery, but Christian keeps poking the bear, trying to crack Cox's mask. Finally, Cox caves and leaves to get the wine. Chris is actually stunned by this guy's patience. But even though Cox masks his face, Chris can feel the killer intent radiating off him. Alone at last, Chris dives into the documents the butler left on the desk. As his eyes scan the ledgers, a wide predatory grin stretches across his face. He catches the butler red-handed, cooking the books. If Cox is the rat, embezzlement makes sense, but financial fraud isn't exactly the smoking gun for treason he needs just yet. Cox returns with the correct wine. Christian, not breaking character for a second, snatches the bottle. He asks if the butler is salty about his rude behavior. The butler, however, acts like a saint, claiming he's just grateful to serve his young master. But before he dips, Cox drops a message some of Christian's friends are waiting at the usual hideout. Obviously, Chris has zero clue who these people are. Cox warns him to steer clear, claiming they're bad news. But that warning just makes it more interesting. Chris is hooked, ready to walk straight into the lion's den to meet these mystery figures. The hideout is stocked with a lavish feast. As Chris takes a seat, his eyes lock onto the terrified maid. She's pouring drinks. He can't help but roast these pigs for making the poor girl serve their fat selves. She hands him a glass and his instincts scream something is definitely off. Without missing a beat, he splashes the wine straight into the face of the tubby guy across the table. No warm-up, just action. He loudly accuses them of spiking his drink with something nasty. Before the situation explodes, he casts a dark magic spell to knock the maid out cold, sparing her from witnessing the violence he's about to unleash. The goons are paralyzed, stunned that Christian has unlocked such high-level dark arts. But before they can blink, he slams both culprits face first onto the table, sending blood flying. The heavy guy screams, demanding to know why he's being attacked. Chris answers by drawing a dagger. He's done with the games and has zero tolerance for their lies. After a brutal interrogation, the skinny guy cracks, confessing they were just following orders. Orders from someone blackmailing them over a drug smuggling ring. Their mission was to frame Christian. The plan: pin a murder on him, specifically the murder of the maid. Chris presses the blade deeper, demanding the mastermind's name. The skinny guy starts getting cold feet, so our MC decides it's time to remind this clown who's actually holding the leash here. Cornered and shaking, the scrawny traitor finally cracks. He spills the tea. Cox is the mastermind orchestrating this whole shady plot. With their cover completely blown, both goons drop to their knees, begging for mercy and swearing to do absolutely anything Christian demands. Christian takes a beat, letting the silence hang heavy. Before agreeing to let them keep their heads on one condition, they follow his orders blindly, no questions asked. Just to be safe, he forces them to verbalize that promise twice, and the second the words leave their lips, he locks them down with his binding spell. Fast forward to the next day, Cox sprints to Count Khazar, desperate to report that Christian has gone full psycho and committed murder. He spins a wild story claiming a drunk Christian killed a servant girl who poured his drinks and then dumped her body in the river like trash. Hearing this accusation, the Count doesn't waste a second and orders Christian to be dragged before the family court to answer for this crime. In the courtroom, Christian pleads innocent without flinching. The Count, however, isn't buying it and insists that witness testimony will seal his fate. Christian calmly claps back, declaring the murder never happened, which means the witnesses are straight up lying. To drop the mic, Christian points to the dead maid, who, to the entire room's horror, strolls into the court looking perfectly healthy. The two conspirators start sweating bullets as they realize they are totally screwed. The maid exposes the truth. Christian actually saved her, escorted her home safely, and even slid her some cash to cover her rent. As far as she's concerned, the only villains here are the two dudes standing right there who tried to silence her. The court erupts in chaos, and the two culprits are instantly exposed for their betrayal. To drive the final nail in the coffin, our boy activates his magic mojo, turning his friends into puppets. Under his control, they start singing like canaries, admitting they filed a bogus report about Christian ending a young girl's life. Even worse, they confess they were acting on direct orders from Butler Cox to frame the young master. Unsurprisingly, the butler goes into full panic mode, defending himself like a man fighting for his last breath. Which honestly he is. Chris already knew this snake would react exactly like this, so he's 10 steps ahead. He turns to his father and asks to borrow his authority for just a moment, claiming he has one specific question for Butler Cox. He vows that this single inquiry will separate the lies from the truth. His father gives the green light, granting Cox a chance to explain himself. So Cox is ordered to take the hot seat in the defendant's stand. Before Chris can step up to the judge's podium, his father warns him, abuse this power, and it gets stripped away instantly. Once Chris takes the judge's seat, he starts drilling into Cox, with the full weight of his borrowed authority. First order of business, he demands defendant Cox swear to speak nothing but the absolute truth. Cox, with zero other options, swears immediately, but the moment Cox repeats that oath a second time, our MC triggers the binding seal magic on him. The entire courtroom freezes, noticing the dark energy. They are completely floored, because there is no way in hell a mere kid should be wielding 4-star dark magic. Before we continue, here's the lore breakdown on this seal. Basically, our guy hacked the binding seal, so it works, even at a lower star rank. The catch: it has extra conditions. Chris needs the target to verbally swear twice. Now it all clicks. That's why he made Cox repeat himself, and why he forced those two goons to promise twice before hijacking their brains. With the binding seal locked in our MC grills, this dirtbag about why he hired 2 hitmen to trash his reputation. The magic starts eating away at Cox's mind the moment he tries to dodge the question. He manages to tank the pain for a few seconds, but eventually he breaks, admitting he was following orders from someone else. The puppet master who gave the order also blackmailed him regarding some shady financial corruption he was involved in, so Cox had his hands tied. Before dragging the full confession out, our guy wants confirmation that Cox is talking about the embezzlement he's been committing behind the Count's back. After verifying that little nugget of truth, Chris pushes the trial forward, demanding the name of the person giving the orders. When Cox tries to keep his mouth shut, the pain ramps up to 11, forcing him to scream the name Sir Eshid. This revelation hits the room like a nuclear bomb as everyone realizes. It was the second son of the Dark Magic clan, Sir Eshid de Baron, pulling the strings all along. Cox adds that, since he just snitched on everyone, Eshid is definitely going to kill him. But before Sir Eshid can even think about silencing Cox, our MC slices this traitor's head off right in front of Count Khazar. Before anyone can start yapping about this brutal move, Chris clarifies he executed the sinner using the authority borrowed from the Count. The Count demands to know why Christian decided Cox deserved an immediate death sentence. Well, Chris's logic is cold but solid. If this rat were left breathing, the Main family would likely fabricate evidence to sweep the incident under the rug, which would put them on the Main family's hit list. This is the final straw for their bank accounts. Plus the cat's out of the bag, everyone saw exactly how Eshid tried to drag our boy through the mud. Count Khazar doesn't waste a second ripping open a portal instantly. Father and son vanish, stepping straight into the family's secret training grounds, to talk away from prying eyes. The courtroom was way too crowded for this conversation. As far as the Count sees it, Eshid is only stirring the pot because of the throne. The old man isn't stupid. He knows. Backing the right heir is the key to unlimited power. It makes total sense that Eshid is shaking in his boots right now. But here's the kicker. With the current board state, the Count is betting on the first young lady, since the First Lord is a total wash. And boom, Chris drops the bomb. He nominates himself for the crown. He's throwing his hat in the ring for successor. Khazar almost laughs in his face. He shoots it down immediately as a pipe dream, but Christian hits him with the rulebook. Any branch family member can take the throne, assuming they've got the skills to pay the bills. Dad, however, thinks that's just a technicality that never happens in real life. A takeover like that, unheard of in their clan's history. But Chris claps back, pointing out that Eshid clearly sees him as a threat. Otherwise, he wouldn't be trying so hard to delete him. The Count has to admit, sure kid, you were a prodigy back in the day, but Eshid is miles ahead of you right now. Chris isn't having it though. He believes he's already closing the gap, and to hit the gas pedal on his leveling, he needs his dad to pull some strings and get him a slot in the sacred dark right, happening in 2 months. The Count raises an eyebrow, reminding him you need to be at least 2-star to even look at the right. Honestly, that's the least of Chris's worries. He swears on his life he'll hit 2-star in 60 days flat, begging the old man to just sign the paper. With that kind of conviction, the Count has no choice but to fold. Cut to later, where the manor staff is, gossiping like crazy about the young master's transformation. Word on the street is that the Count is personally overseeing his grind. And this isn't just exercise, it's a routine so brutal that even veteran knights would tap out. We smash cut to our MC absolutely shredding obstacles with his fresh sword arts. Watching from the sidelines, even the Count is floored. At Chris's learning curve, he's mastering in days what takes others years. But the jaw-dropping moment comes when Chris unleashes a combo on a dummy, dismantling it piece by piece. Turns out he remixed the mud swordsmanship with black side sword energy, cooking up an ult capable of slicing cleanly through defenses that normal mud techniques would bounce off of. The Count practically has a heart attack seeing this. Usually, dual-wielding techniques like that messes up curse casting, but Chris makes it look effortless, barely an inconvenience. Fast forward 15 days and our boy is face-planted in the dirt, completely gassed. He can pull off god-tier sword magic, but simple cardio is wrecking him, and there's no cheat code for this part, because stamina has to be built the hard way. While he's wheezing for air, Deputy Commander Mellon spawns out of thin air. She's just dropping by to troll him about their upcoming duel. She's practically counting the seconds, until she can beat him up again. Even though he's grinding, she thinks his efforts are cute but useless against the massive level gap. His fantasy of making her kneel, yeah, that's staying a fantasy. But Chris isn't blinking. He's dead set on making it real. She digs the killer instinct, so she gives him props before bouncing, telling him to bring his A-game, if only to keep her entertained. Let's break down the stats. Mellon is an upper 4-star. Each stage has 3 tiers, lower, middle, and upper. Chris is sitting at upper 1-star, which means he's getting stat-checked hard. But our guy has a strategy to bridge the gap. He's a loaded Nepo baby now, and he's gonna pay to win. Later, he links up with his evil spirit maid Marie, who is looking absolutely snatched. Since they're heading out, she dressed to the nines. She's definitely treating this like a date. Christian shuts that down immediately. He didn't invite her, he just told her to pack his luggage. But with Marie's yandere vibes, the guy can't catch a break. He literally begged his dad to fire this obsessed lovesick spirit and hire a normal human attendant. Dad just shrugged and pointed at the master-servant binding contract. Sad truth is, you can't control a high-tier banshee without the paperwork. And it gets worse. The fine print. If he ever wants to void this contract, he has to lock lips with Marie. But let's snap back to reality. Christian shuts her down again. He's heading into a crowd, and she is strictly uninvited. He's terrified her spiritual energy might accidentally nuke the locals, which obviously is a deal breaker. Cue the waterworks. Marie instantly morphs into a kicked puppy, guilt-tripping him about being trapped indoors for decades. And she wins. Christian caves, reluctantly letting her tag along, but puts her on a strict do not engage leash. The girl pulls a total 180 sobbing mess 1 second, a beaming ray of sunshine the next. As they roll out, she's dying to know the mission objective. His answer, pure profit. Marie starts making it rain with the gold coins he gave her. Confused why Mr. Moneybags needs more cash, Christian shuts that down fast. What he has is chump change. And seriously, put the gold away before you rob yourself. She keeps guessing his endgame. More gold real estate, she's striking out on every pitch. They reach their ride, only to find a stowaway crashing the party. And of course, it's his kid brother Thorn, sitting there with his nose in the air, totally catching Chris off guard. Apparently the kid is playing babysitter, scared Chris might relapse into his scumbag era. It doesn't help when Chris drops the bomb. They're going gambling. Bro's trying to build that top G portfolio. But hey, they're demons. Gambling isn't a vice. It's practically a royal decree recommended by the king himself. Thorn insists on shadowing him to keep things kosher, which actually gives Chris the impression that the kid actually gives a damn. He teases him about it, triggering a hilarious, flustered reaction. Thorn is dead set on beating him, while Chris realizes he's about to have a field day, absolutely hustling his little brother. They pull up to the glitzy venue, leaving Marie and Thorn slack-jawed. To blend in, Chris tosses them masks. Low profile is key here. Then, he slips Marie a side quest Thorn knows nothing about. As for the kid, just try to keep up. They stride into the belly of the beast. Right away, the regulars size them up as fresh meat, walking wallets ready to be emptied. Chris, sensing the vibe, challenges Thorn to a wager. Who can stack the most cash in 60 minutes? Loser has to accept a nickname, chosen by the winner. Chris already has a humiliating paragraph-long title locked and loaded. He plays Thorn's ego like a fiddle, baiting him into the deal. The kid stomps off, eyes blazing with fire. Chris crushes his first round effortlessly, but he knows how this rigged game works. The house feeds you crumbs to boost your confidence, then yanks the rug out. The second you bet the farm. Chris knows the hustle. Thorn is walking in blind. The kid is getting cooked, falling for every trap. Chris adds salt to the wound, taunting him to tilt him further. While they bicker over losses, Chris clocks the shark circling his brother. They smell blood in the water. Annoyed, Thorn doubles down, ignoring Chris's red flags. But honestly, this is exactly what Chris wanted. Time ticks by, and Thorn is bleeding chips. Meanwhile, Marie, currently invisible, has already marked every scammer in the room. Poor Thorn is down a staggering 10,000. Game over. Chris steps away to pay a visit to a certain tycoon. Staff members panic at his entrance, but he barks orders to fetch the boss immediately. Enter Granthall of the Merchant Guild, oozing fake charm. He's known as a brilliant businessman. In reality, he runs this crooked casino. Chris demands a private sit-down with the snake, calling him out for fleecing his little brother. The merchant tries to play dumb, claiming he can't possibly micromanage every dealer. Plausible deniability, right, wrong. Marie unveils her aura, putting the fear of God into him. He hits the floor, begging for his life, promising to pay anything to make it right. Boom. Chris has him exactly where he wants him, slapping him with a demand for 1 million rupees in damages. The merchant nearly chokes. They don't have that kind of liquidity. So Chris Generous drops the price to 200,000 rupees instead. The merchant's wallet takes a massive hit, but the deal is sealed. Finally, Chris drops one last request on the table. Smash cut to the loot hall. We are talking top-tier combat gear, and the main prize, the Holy Sword Grenade. This isn't just a shiny toy. It's a relic forged from the sacrifice of a hero's soul. A weapon of legend. Even after the hero fell to corruption, demons worshipped this thing. But now, it's rusting in a junk pile. It's abandoned, gathering dust, but Chris sees potential where others see trash. Before leaving, he tosses a pendant to Marie. She'd been eyeing it hard. He plays it cool, clarifying it's just a casual gift, no strings attached. Marie freezes. Since she kicked the bucket and came back, nobody's treated her like a person. This hits deep. Mission accomplished. Chris signals it's time to bounce. Marie responds with a smile so bright it's almost blinding. She excitedly promises him unlimited blood juice from now on, which sounds cute until the horror sets in. That strawberry juice he's been chugging. Yeah, it was already spiked. Chris is praying to every god that she's joking. Suddenly, Chris realizes he forgot a minor detail. His brother. Cut to Thurn, who got robbed down to his last penny. Thurn is holding 1 single rupee, screaming his lungs out. While Chris was napping, Thurn was 5 seconds away from being sold into slavery. He was only saved because someone recognized his face. Chris yawns. He reminds Thurn that he lost the bet, so he better start using the correct title. Thurn's soul leaves his body. The terms of the bet flood back. He has to permanently address this. Scumbag sibling as Honorable King Emperor Majesty Big Brother. He tries to force the words out. Thurn is dying of cringe, swallowing his pride, while Chris soaks up every second of the torture. Chris warns him to put some respect on the name. Thurn storms off, vowing to flip the script and get revenge one day. Spoiler alert, that day isn't coming. But Chris knows in the original timeline his death is caused by that kid manipulated by the real villain Eshid. Eshid is the golden boy, the son of Langham, and the boasted top heir of the dark magic clan. Chris might just be piloting this body, but if he wants to secure his spot as heir, a clash with Eshid is inevitable. He knows the bad ending that's waiting for him, so he is dead set on taking Eshid down first. But right now, he needs to secure Melon's loyalty. Back to the Holy Blade Grenade. It has a rough history, and the only reason it's collecting dust is because nobody can tame it. Chris steps up, curious if he's built different. He grabs the hilt, and zap. The sword shocks him. It rejects him instantly. It smells the dark magic on him and hates it. Typical behavior for a light attribute weapon. But Chris doesn't care about the rules. He starts analyzing the mana flow, looking for a back door to hack the sword. Then he switches to brute force. He starts hammering his dark mana into the blade, bullying it into submission. He tells the sword he has got all day to beat the living hell out of it until it learns who the master is. It is hilarious. The legendary weapon actually starts shivering in fear. Fast forward a few days. Chris pulls up to the training grounds to meet his dad, but he spots a surprise guest. Recognition hits him. That is the commander of the Black Shadow Knights, the lethal and beautiful Marion. She is royalty in this world, daughter of the Elder Clan head, master of the Dark Magic Clan, and big sister to his father and Langham. She handles the clan's dirty work. Basically, he is looking at the baddest woman alive in the elite circle. Her presence here is a massive red flag. Count Khazar drops the info on why she is in town. She is looking into the Cox situation. Apparently, she thinks Chris was a little too trigger-happy when he decided to end that man's life. If she is aligned with Eshid, Chris is cooked. He decides to play it cocky, remarking that, "It is funny, such a VIP is wasting time on a small fry issue." Marion cuts through the noise. She clarifies she isn't here for Cox on orders from above. She is here for Chris. He realizes this might be his golden ticket to finally charm the Elder Clan head. But looking at Marion's cold glare, she thinks he is just an arrogant brat. Trying to challenge a beast like Melon with the stats of a mere 2-star warrior, Marion thinks he's delusional and tries to cancel the fight immediately. But our boy isn't about to wave the white flag. He drops a bombshell. He has full control over the cursed blade grenade. Marion is absolutely floored. She turns on her brother, hollering that he's a liar for downplaying his son's abilities. The kid is actually bringing a holy sword to a duel. Chris smirks at her shock, practically daring her to call a foul. He asks if the rulebook forbids high-tier loot, because honestly, he's here to catch a win by any means necessary. Marion fires back with a history lesson not even the Elder Clan head could tame grenade. So a rookie like Chris, he's signing his own death warrant with that level of arrogance. Chris loves the doubt. He decides to humble her, fully unsheathing the blade to show he's not just holding it, he owns it. Marion squints, wondering if it's an illusion or a cheap knockoff. But the second she grabs the hilt sizzle, it burns her skin instantly, forcing her to drop it like a hot potato. She watches in horror as Chris casually scoops it back up. No burns, no screams. He doesn't explain the mechanics, but he drops one truth bomb: he can do the impossible, simply because he's a straight-up genius. That flex definitely impresses his dad, but the moment is cut short when Melon steps into the arena. She admits taming the sword is a neat party trick, but warns him it won't save his life today. The bell rings. Melon opens with a heavy swing that puts our boy instantly on the defensive. Her specs are just glitchy high. With her limiters off, the pressure is real. Chris starts sweating as their steel clashes, realizing the power gap is massive. Luckily, Grenade acts as a hard counter to Melon's dark energy. But the real highlight reel is Chris's movement. He's dancing around her strikes, actually pushing her back. Count Khazar is watching, jaw on the floor. Marion's eyes go wide as she analyzes the fight. Chris is micro-adjusting his demon energy every single second to nullify the Holy Sword's backlash in real time. It's insane multitasking. Melon senses it too. "Are you reading my moves?" she demands. Chris grins, tapping his temple. 2020 vision, babe. He explains that every sword swing needs a setup. To launch a strike, the body has to move first. A shoulder twitch, a raised arm, it's all a telegraph. Pro or noob physics is physics. Realizing she can't win on pure swordplay, Melon decides to fight dirty and flips the script. She casts a binding spell, mid-combat, catching Chris off guard just as he was capitalizing on her stance. "Forgot I'm a mage too," she taunts. But the victory lap is short-lived. Ping Chris cleanses the debuff instantly, with a purification artifact. He mentally thanks his dad for the item, even though Count Khazar definitely doesn't remember buying it. Chris admits he's a master of the 5-finger discount. Besides, in his book, good gear equals skill. To prove it, he tosses a sphere into the air. It pops harmlessly above them. Melon looks up, distracted mistake. The real explosive orb flies in from straight ahead, detaching with a vicious roar and swallowing her in flames. Another souvenir from Chris's shopping spree. but he knows she's a tank. Melon slices through the fire, closing the distance. Chris doesn't flinch. He blocks and shatters her weapon. With a smile, he breaks her blade. Count Khazar is practically trembling with excitement now. Melon walks out of the smoke laughing like a total psycho. This is too much fun. The girl has gone full berserker mode. Marion is terrified to see her in this state, wondering how Chris survives the next hit. But Chris stays ice cold. He lets her wild attack slip past him by a millimeter, and counters. In a blink, his blade is pressed against her throat. Checkmate. Melon is shocked, Marion is devastated, and Khazar is awestruck. No salt, though. Melon bursts out laughing, realizing he orchestrated the whole fight to prove a point. He wants his prize. But he's chill. If she doesn't want to serve him, he'll respect it. Will there be more fights like this? She asks. Chris nods. Tons. That seals the deal. He just recruited a powerhouse. Post-fight, we switch to Marion's point of view, who is still hung up on his. Mana control. She has vivid flashbacks of her old master failing to hold grenade for more than 10 seconds. To wield that holy sword requires constantly hacking the magical wavelengths to bypass the rejection. Doing that in a life or death fight? That's impossible. Even the clan head thought only a demon lord or a dragon could pull that off. Or apparently this talented lunatic. Controlling dark energy. For most, it's a nightmare. For Chris, it's light work. He bends it to his will effortlessly. Witnessing his combat prowess, Marion starts to believe. Her father's lifelong dream. It might finally be within reach. Cut to the kitchen where the vibe shifts completely. We see a massive, terrifying orc chef, delicately frosting a strawberry cake. The chef's culinary game is top tier, but he pauses confused why the young master is slumming it down here in the galley. The mission: baking cookies. Chris has a specific target in mind for a sweet treat. His obsessive maid immediately spirals. Is this for a girlfriend? She's practically green with envy, until Chris shuts that theory down fast. The orc offers to whip up the batch, but Chris refuses. This has to be a solo project. Personal touch only. Splat mid-sentence, Chris gets tagged by flying strawberry pulp. These orcs aren't mixing ingredients, they're absolutely obliterating them. It's so violent, Chris wonders if that red splatter is fruit or actual blood. Scene change, Chris tracks down his great-aunt Marion. She's packing up to leave, but Chris catches her just in time for a proper send-off. You can tell she's touched by the effort. He hands over a beautifully wrapped box. Inside, those handmade cookies. Marion lights up, she wasn't expecting this. In the background, Count Khazar finally connects the dots. That random question about her favorite snacks earlier, it wasn't random. The kid is playing 4D chess with the details. When Marion finds out Chris baked these from scratch, she is visibly floored. One bite, and she's hooked pure culinary bliss. Chris watches her reaction like a hawk. That's exactly the validation he needed. Moved by the gesture, she insists on returning the favor. Ask for anything, she says. Bingo. This is the opening he's been baiting. He drops the hammer. He doesn't want items or gold. He asks her to be his true aunt, to treat him like real family, not just a blood relative. Marion pauses. She's sharp enough to know there's subtext here. Then it clicks. The dark rite ritual is coming up. This isn't just sentimentality. He's locking in her political backing for the brutal succession war ahead. But there's a snag. She can't grant that wish. The representatives of the main family stand in the way, and that complicates everything. We must be unbiased in the outcome. That is their one and only rule, Chris argues. That he wasn't really looking for something like that. All he cares about is having a closer relationship with his aunt. Marion can't believe that this kid has no ulterior motives behind his words. He puts on an Oscar-level acting performance. With his adorable face pleading with her to help him out, Marion likes his forwardness. And knowing that he baked delicious cookies for her, she's taken a liking to him. She requests more cookies from his side on her next visit. Seeing their relationship blossom like this, Count Khazar wipes a tear off his eyes. Chris is out here really trying his hardest, telling his aunt he's gonna mess up the taste if she doesn't assist him when needed. Marion smiles, addressing the boy, and finally offering him a chance to join the Black Shadow Knights. She's already accounted for his skills for his battle against Milan, and there's a great potential resting inside of him, even greater than the elder clan head. But before he's able to bring out that potential, his rivals will pose him a lot of trouble. Marion is worried about that dark future, while Chris reveals that he's okay with dying as long as he's able to conquer the obstacles in his path. Despite her invitation, Chris is confident in his victory and assures her he'll win. This kind of confidence is almost detrimental from her perspective, but she knows that he's an exception and might be telling the truth. That's why she can't stop him. Marion mounts her horse and offers the boy a final piece of advice, strongly warning him against the first young lady. Julian appears to be the gentlest of them all, but Marion deems her a greater threat than even Ashid and claims that he'll understand why soon enough. Chris appreciates her advice and bids her farewell. The scene ends with Marion gaining a positive view of her nephew as she returns the farewell. Back in his room, Chris is in a state of contemplation. Marion and his father were both competent 6-star level warriors, but he's yet to hear much about their contribution during the Great War or what role they served. The magic empire boasted many combatants, and he guessed that the number would at least be enough to give the forces of light serious trouble. However, he isn't looking for a repeat of his past. For now, he is compelled by the desire to become even stronger. In the next scene, he shares a meeting with his father, who called his boy for a talk. But to his utter shock, he couldn't believe that Chris had already reached 2-star level. The kid has grown to that level in a month's time. Chris is acting casual, reminding his father that he's built differently. Returning to the topic at hand, he wonders what's up. Count Khazar reveals that the main house has contacted them, and that he told them about the participation of both Thurn and Chris for the sacred dark ritual. Unfortunately, only Thurn was approved to join the competition, and it's because of Chris's terrible reputation of wasting their family's wealth and engaging in all kinds of heinous acts. The allegations, or more like straight facts in this case, are hitting our boy like a Mike Tyson uppercut. He gets launched to the ground and is at the verge of death when his father oddly voices support for his son. Chris gets up and asks if Langham was responsible for the main decision, but as it turns out, it's someone else's hand at play. Both father and son realize that it's the working of Lowen de Baron. Lowen is the direct descendant of the main house and the main celebrity of the ceremony. Let's explore what the Holy Dark Ceremony is truly like. It's a ritual where certain candidates share a special kind of darkness extracted from the dimensional shadow. Since the amount is limited and can only be shared to a certain extent, candidates are supposed to brawl it out to vouch for their competence. This also means that the more powerful candidates end up with the most amount of darkness as a consequence. That is the key to becoming the family's heir or the prince. In this case, Lowen's victory will make him the 6th prince. And if that happens, Chris's plans will be shattered. Count Khazar emphasizes that he'll speak to them once more, and they can always use Marion if something happens. But Chris stops him, believing he's more than capable of handling this situation. Khazar grabs his shoulder, acknowledging the boy's talent. However, he wants to support him this time, a gesture that the kid really appreciates. However, this kid is a bratty scoundrel who has his own ways of doing something, and he makes an ugly, villainous face just to prove his father a point. The boy questions if Count Tyreman's family is also participating in the ceremony. Turns out the 3rd son is indeed a participant, and that kid, who was even more of a lowlife than Chris, ended up vouching against his participation. Seeing his father's temper tantrum, Chris is realizing that his father really loves his children. Apparently, he tells him to calm down as he intends to make his haters eat their words. He knows that the Tyreman family hosts the Ebony Hunt event, so he's just going to become a participant of that hunt. The scene cuts to Marion returning to her lord. After completing her mission, she speaks highly of Chris, much to the Elder Clan head's surprise, who remembers the kid being a fool and nothing more up until this point. Of course, Marion believes that he has changed quite a lot, so the patriarch proceeds to ask if the boy meets the qualifications to fulfill his wish. The commander reflects that this wish, the one that he is so desperate about, requires overturning fate itself, the desire to break the shackles of death with forbidden magic. Though Marion is unsure at this point, she can say one thing with confidence: the kid is the closest chance of him ever achieving that impossible wish. Hearing those words, the patriarch is glad, even though the family consensus is against his participation in the dark ceremony. Of course, not even the Lord Patriarch is willing to oppose the decision, because he thinks the kid should be able to find a solution for himself to overcome this challenge. Despite Marion arguing otherwise and vouching for the support of the kid's participation, the old geezer haughtily quiets her. Lost in her reflection of his demeanor, Marion remarks that this is just the kind of man he was. He had exceptional expectations and became ruthless in response. The Elder Clan head wasn't expecting her to speak so highly of the boy. Declaring bloodsucker, he calls for Simon, who is the head steward of the clan, having heard the conversation in its fullest. Simon is tasked with the duty to watch over the boy in close proximity, observing his every action until the Holy Dark Ceremony. Though he is happy to execute that command, Simon also wants to play a little prank on the child. The head patriarch looks over with a cold stare and reminds him not to get too comfortable. Something tells me bloodsucker over here is dangerous as hell. Meanwhile, Marion wishes for the child to do his best, clearly worried for what is to come. The scene goes back to Chris, who is enjoying his analysis. Having reached the 2-star level poses a new challenge, and that is reaching the 3-star level, which seems far away for now. It is exactly why he requires ebony, and with it he can gather a ton of magic in a relatively short amount of time, thanks to the Tyran family hosting the Ebony Hunt event. He is lucky to participate at this time. The only issue is that, even after achieving the goal of capturing Beast Carazo, acquiring ebony isn't guaranteed. A special condition has to be fulfilled to fully get your hands on it. Chris exits the carriage, meeting the old merchant who appears empty-handed. The moment he holds out his bag, our boy tosses it and reveals a bunch of gold coins as a gift for him. Clearly, he wasn't looking for these as a gift. Chris teases him mercilessly, reminding him that he knows about his illegal dealings going around and how the fat man has been avoiding taxes as well. These sudden fact checks are killing the man, but Chris is more than happy to turn a blind eye, as long as the merchant cleans up his mess. Lastly, he has come here for a little something called the Grey Pill. It is an exquisite item only available on the black market, and what do you know, it is expensive as heck. Chris doesn't give a damn and asks Marie to use her methods. The chick goes completely crazy and whips out her torture weapons to get him. It is the easiest method, because this guy instantly folds much to Chris's amusement. On top of that massive request, he also wants him to find a good dagger and some armor for him alongside it, saying that he boards the carriage, and while the old man is cursing him on the inside, he crumbles in defeat. Marie learns that the young master has one more destination to take care of before returning home. He tells the coachman to stop and goes his way. Marie sees him staring down some kind of aphrodisiac. This pink elixir seems intimidating to our boy. While Marie is out here, questioning if he has been engaging in suspicious activities lately, Chris denies the allegations while Marie's graphics bump up to 100. With that JoJo-style stare, Chris apparently needs the aphrodisiac for someone else, specifically his father, who appears to be getting older. As for the server, he tells the man to keep this conversation secret until his grave anyway. Chris returns to meet his father alongside his brother, torturing Thurn like he should. Bro makes him say out his long title. Thurn simply advises his brother not to get hurt during the ebony hunt, while our boy teases him for being worried about his brother. Their quarrel is stopped with their father ordering Chris to defeat the Tyran family's contestants. The genius mage promises that he will return with good news. Funnily enough, Count Khazar is still not over the long title, and teases Thurn about it as well. The scene cuts to the Tyran estate, where an orange goblin waiter doesn't permit Chris to enter the manor. Chris learns that the young Lord Alois has issued an exclusive order, forbidding him from entering. Applying pressure with his words, the young master questions if he is being told to stay elsewhere in the capital. Poor goblin is intimidated, but alas, he basically says yes. Though Chris's servants jump in to protect his name, he stops them and continues to apply pressure, asking who's going to pay for the hotel. The servant responds that he can merely charge the Tyramon family for it, which is music to our boy's ears. Something tells me this man is about to break their bank, and that's exactly what happens. Because this smartass actually goes for the wildest hotel, which is going to cost them 100,000 rupees for their stay. Chris is more than happy to burn someone else's money while he's at it. While they're discussing what to do next, the trunk opens with Marie popping out like a terrible surprise. Chris wasn't expecting this outcome, and wonders what the hell's wrong with her. She ended up hiding in his luggage. As his most loyal maid, Chris is clearly annoyed when all of a sudden Alois the Third Prince roars at him for handing them a giant bill. Our boy treats him like a joke, despite Alois being the star of the ebony hunt for the year. Of course, Chris didn't just want to stay in any hotel, so he picked the nicest estate he could think of. He taunts Alois for being mad, especially when he's the one who issued that kind of order. Getting pissed, Alois unleashes a beast ready to throw hands right here and now. This creature is actually the Tiamat-style beast, with an ability to control magic different from the taming techniques. This technique involved the usage of dark magic to control beasts through fear. Certain feelings are instilled within the creature, and the process is complex, requiring time to master. Regardless, Chris doesn't give a damn as he's more than happy to beat down the kitty cat. He asks Marie to whip out their own defense against a scary kitty like the one in front of them. In response, Chris prepares himself a damn staff, provoking Alois to come try him out. The enraged prince releases the intimidating creature to attack Chris. And I'm not gonna lie, he might have blocked that lunge just now, but that must have taken some serious balls to stand his ground. The creature actually knocks Chris aside, making him taunt the third prince for abusing numbers in a fight. He lays down a condition. The condition is simple: if he wins this battle, he's gonna join the ebony hunt as a bodyguard and not a driver. Man, Alois is too busy getting enraged. He mounts the creature and attempts to crush Chris in a single attack. The beast actually shatters the ground upon impact, but the human is nowhere to be found. Bro pops up from behind like a sneaky-ass ninja and beats the shit out of Alois with his wooden stick of destruction. After eating a good portion of his attacks, Alois gets even more agitated. However, this time, when the creature tries to charge up on him, it sees something. It is driven back by the intimidating fear of death, looming over Chris, causing it to whimper away like a scaredy cat. Alois, now even more ashamed, doesn't know what's going on. The funny thing is, all Chris had to do was chalk up an illusion spell to fool the creature, but he thinks it works like a charm against silly creatures. The third prince refuses to bow down and conjures a second beast in its place. This time, it's a horse. Chris is unafraid and lectures him on an interesting tidbit regarding punks. Then he lunges forth sharply, knocking his fucking ass out with a single strike. Chris completes his sentence, emphasizing that he isn't gonna wait the entire fucking chapter to end, just to let his opponent whip out an ability. Bro really said this isn't Dragon Ball Z, and you ain't Goku turning Super Saiyan 3. The indulgent young master is enjoying a gambling session shortly afterwards. Yeah, apparently this is his way of resting, which is quite the expensive rest if you ask me. The scoundrel merely wants to enjoy honoring his name. Marie is okay with him doing whatever the heck he wants, so long he doesn't drink. Poor guy has to deal with ginger ale instead of alcohol, which is arguably a tougher battle than the one he had earlier. The servants of the Tiramon family are baffled to keep an eye on this guy upon Alois's orders. Chris turns to offer them a chance to enjoy the game with him. After all, he did end up kicking their master's butt, so there's a good chance Alois won't be waking up until tomorrow. The offer seems tempting, but his servants are loyal to Alois, so they decline him. Well, what ends up really happening is this guy getting fully knocked out. After indulging a bit too much, bro is so out cold that even the servants think they shouldn't worry about him anymore. They're just gonna file the report and check in for the day. The funny thing is, this was his plan all along. Chris effortlessly manipulates them and wonders if they're about to move. He packs his stuff, telling Marie not to follow him, which, as you can expect, must be a really tough call for the freaky maid. Also, remember the aphrodisiac from earlier. She still thinks he's using it for himself instead of his father. Marie is ashamed that he's going out. To enjoy some time with the ladies, Chris is baffled by her lack of filter, because apparently she thinks in a singular dimension only. The scene cuts to the Kython mountain range, which is supposed to be the hidden domain of the Tyran family. Demonic beasts run rampant here, which is why Chris is locating their hunting ground. He quickly finds it, and thinks the security is pretty crap, with only 2 guards protecting the place. Thanks to his invisibility magic that he learned from his stupid maid, he's able to go right past them without worrying about getting caught. Walking right up to the altar, Chris knows that this is where the accumulated darkness reaches its climax. The place is just as spooky as he thought, but now he has to think of a way to gather the darkness. Recalling his conversation with a damn furry, he remembers that the goal is to make Karazo take its own life. The beast must be driven to extreme fear, to the point it sees death as its only way of escape. In the conflict that will follow, a feeling of terror and joy. A perfect moment will arise where light will transform into darkness. It's also the reason Tyran controls beasts, through their darkness hunts. Right now, Chris's true goal is to steal their secret technique, and allow the mix of aphrodisiac he obtained to send Karazo into a forceful frenzy. Then, he'll steal the darkness for himself. But unfortunately, he doesn't have enough time to master the technique, so he tries for an alternative way. Suddenly, Chris feels a terrifying presence, causing him to jolt back and wonder if there's someone around. But surprisingly, no one is there. He is drawn to an empty cave, which upon entering, he feels an incredible force of malice greeting him. This ominous place has a high-level dark magic barrier cast all over it. To his shock, what he is witnessing before his eyes is the Rift of Gehenna. Gehenna is actually the domain of the demons and fiends, and it is all kinds of scary. It's the one place connecting to the human realm, which leads to an interesting idea. Chris could actually force Karazo to this place, using his perfect aphrodisiac, serving as the bait. Convinced of this method, he thinks he's got what it takes to fulfill the hunt. But as he's turning around to leave, the bloodsucker pops out of the blue. Impressed and intrigued by the young master's actions so far, he was there to witness Chris's fight against Arlos, and his impressive manipulation against his servants. Now, the child was about to unfold an elaborate scheme too. It excited the Grand Steward to play with him. Thinking of a plan, Simon reaches out to grasp the Rift of Gehenna, which ends up leaking blood as a consequence. The Rift calls out for his name, dubbing him as the Betrayer. In a shocking plot twist, Simon makes his move. The day of the hunt is here at last. With Arlos representing the flag of his family, Chris talks some shit in his face for acting high and mighty despite getting his butt whooped. Arlos claps back by mocking him for bringing the unusable holy sword. But Chris thinks he should test the weapon's integrity by beating him with it. Their banter comes to a close when the third prince orders his team to lure Karazo to the altar. He wants the guards and the mages to follow him. While this is happening, Chris is wary of the secret bat eyeing them down. He's happy to assist the bratty prince, and goes on to wait for the others at the altar. The mage is annoyed by him and asks him to sit around, if he's going to act like a nuisance. Chris happily takes up on that offer, and freely goes away, causing the mage to get enraged. Arlos controls him, and emphasizes that they should focus on the hunt. Chris is told to guard the flag, like the scoundrel he is, which is the easiest task in the world. For now, as he's enjoying himself, he knows things are going his way. Also, he ended up acquiring the dagger and orb from Grantel. Just as planned, Chris observes Arlos and the mage busy with observation. He senses Karazo's presence, as the beady-eyed beast arrives at last. From one look, you'd probably think this dumb animal is the cutest creature ever. Arlos is prepared, and releases the magic ritual to bind the creature. But despite his tampering, Karazo only gets enraged instead of enticed under his command. The third prince didn't anticipate this outcome, and gets bitch-slapped into the ground. The mage rushes to check on his master. To make matters worse, he's been inflicted with poison, causing the mages to erect a defensive barrier immediately. But watching this battle from afar, Chris believes nothing will go their way. especially since he's already caused the beast to go wild using the aphrodisiac. Thankfully, Arlos had the antidote on him, but even he knows they're going to face some serious trouble if this is what they're up against. The guards jump in to drive the creature back, but let's be real, they're not going to do anything against a giant enraged bird who tackles them away with its sheer size. Arlos is about to get slammed into the ground and braces for impact when suddenly Chris comes for his support, defending against the attack. While at the same time savagely pinning Arlos to the ground, Bro tells him that he's pathetic and that he's willing to help as long as the third prince refers to him as a brother. Arlos is resistant until Chris entertains the possibility of letting this wild creature go on, unleashing its fury against the prince. The bodyguards are already down, and the barriers aren't working. Arlos, despite his ego, begs the scoundrel to help him. Pleased to hear those words, Chris happily swipes away the creature with the swing of his weapon. He then uses a binding spell, shocking Arlos greatly with his sudden usage of the technique. However, in reality, he was just using a mockery of the original technique. It was nothing more than a mid-level technique. The beast Carazo resists, but luckily Chris controls it exceptionally well. Arlos realizes what's going on. Chris fooled him and took control of the beast for his personal goal. He leads Carazo all the way up to the secret cave of Gehenna. The place instills the fear of death inside the creature until it reaches the golden state he was waiting for. Capitalizing on this opportune moment, Chris plunges his blade into the creature's body. By the time Arlos and his men arrive there, it's already done. The third prince is worried for their safety and emphasizes that they should leave as soon as possible. But Chris has no plans of doing so and shows them the ashen orb he acquired from the beast. Clearly, this wasn't what they were expecting. The mage roars at him for intervening, while Arlos actually does a 180 and thanks our boy for saving the lives of his men. After all, it's only because of him that they avoided a darker fate. It almost makes Chris feel bad, especially since he secretly ruined the hunt for him by swapping the orb with a fake. Still, Chris isn't about to fold and reminds Arlos that he's got to refer to him as a senior brother from now on. It's a teasing remark to someone who is years older than you. Already in the middle of their banter, both of them experience a sudden and overwhelming pressure emanating from nearby. Two terrifying eyes stare down at them from the dark. Chris knows that they're in deep trouble. The minute he lays his eyes on a demon of Gehenna, this giant monstrosity greets them with a scary face. And jumping to his protection, Arlos tells our boy to run away while he still can. I'm starting to like him a lot more now. That's a nice change. Taking note of the damn bat spying on them, Chris launches his blade aimed right at the bat, forcing a disruption to Simon's signal. He can't believe that the child noticed his connection. And now that his bat has been destroyed, he can't do anything in case things go wrong, not even after using his bloodline arts. Simon realizes he should hurry immediately or else they will all die. Back to the cave, Chris expresses that he despises being secretly spied on. The demon laughs, believing that it's a death wish for the boy. Recalling his battles during the Age of Ruin, Chris knows for a fact that this guy is at least at the 5-star level. This means he can't face ugly Sukuna over here, but he can do one thing. Arlos shouts at him for wasting his magic power. And since Chris's sleeping spell didn't work on him just now, Bro deploys the old-school method of punching the daylights out of him. With the prince unconscious, the demon entertains the possibility of a sacrifice being offered. The funny thing is, he's even ready to spare Chris for the tribute. Our boy tells him he yaps way too much and whips out the holy sword grenade. The demon is impressed, but he thinks it's pointless to take out a weapon that not even Chris himself can use. He unleashes his first attack, causing Chris to block it. But even as confident as he is, he gets overwhelmed by the attack to the point he's coughing blood. Things are looking really bad, and the considerate demon offers the boy a second chance to sacrifice his companions. But nah, this guy is a born savage, and plans to keep it that way as he spits in the demon's face. It's the closest fuck you without using any words. Chris frees himself and deploys the usage of the ebony, coating his blade in golden light. The demon of Gehenna is shocked that he's able to control the light, despite being a creature of the dark. Chris is happy that he's got the demon shivering already. The demon forces a powerful attack to annihilate Chris from where he stands. In response, our boy unleashes a powerful swing of his blade, cutting right past the sphere of dark and severing the demon's body. But even after expending this much power, Chris understands that his body is not yet ready to control it. He faints shortly afterward, recalling the move he used in his previous life, the Dead Sea Flash. The move he used just now is an ability inspired by the singular ray of light that rests above the Dead Sea. And despite using such a technique, his frame wasn't worthy of House Meyer. But he strongly believed in Chris's potential, believing that he would become the light to save their world. Now that's the definition of a true homie's confidence in you. Observing the boy's performance, Mafina, a higher being of the dark, and the first seat of the 7 circles of Gehenna intriguingly watches over him. Back at the estate, our boy finally wakes up, after being unconscious for 2 days straight. His body feels creaky, but okay. Luckily, the darkness he obtained is with him. He recalls hearing Mafina's voice right before he fainted, realizing he's getting himself into more trouble than he thought. In this world, the demons who were promising with their talents were often noticed by the high-ranking devils, who nurtured their growth with their blessings. But that's just a crappy way for the losers who simply cannot grow on their own. Or at least, that's what our protagonist believes. Also, he thinks Mafina can't be that high up, if she's from the Seventh Circle's party. In any case, Count Tiraman, who looks like a Chad, unlike his son, mind you, personally comes to greet the boy. Chris gets up to greet the Lord properly, but he's told to rest. He tells them about the investigation team that was sent the other day. Their investigations revealed the tampering of some outside mage, but lucky for them, the demon was called back at the end. Still, they were lucky they weren't wiped out at that moment. Interestingly, Chris notes that they have yet to find out that he was the one who took down the demon, which is fair since no one would ever believe that. Tiraman admits that he owes the child an apology for mistreating him as a scoundrel upon his first visit. Secondly, he owes the kid a thank you and declares him a benefactor to their house. Chris plays it off coolly, acting as if he was acting right out of duty and for the sake of the greater good. Though he's gaslighting him, he personally feels bad. Tiraman is moved by his words and even offers to carry out the boy's favors if he needs something. Refusing to let this chance go, the boy requests Lord Tiraman to reconcile with House Khazar. It's quite the shocking request, but it's better for the two houses to cooperate with each other instead of opposing each other. He wants to be rivals with the prince and assures a healthy competition to come a relationship with many promising aspects. Lord Tiraman reflects for a moment, but Chris continues to hammer down his persuasion, recalling how their families only got into bad terms because of the main house scheming against them. Also, if the branch families ended up uniting, it would pose a clear threat to the main family, which is why this is their method of exercising control. Lord Tiraman wonders if the boy is requesting a rebellion against the main family, which would be dangerous coming from a kid. Chris quickly denies that and explains that they should simply behave as more than just pawns on the board. Lord Tiraman likes the boy for his deep analysis, while Chris wonders if he'd be willing to fulfill his request. Giving in, the man promises to contact Count Khazar for a chance of reconciliation. Things are going just as planned. Chris hopes to acquire more allies and eventually contest the Age of Ruin with a strong alliance. Lord Tiraman also smacks his son for staying all quiet in this pivotal moment. Arlos actually hands him the Ashen Shard for his deeds. He remembers being unconscious and held onto the shard for Chris when he woke up. Chris teases him for being grateful and takes advantage of Arlos's ego. The scene causes his father to let out a laugh, presenting a gift from his side as well. It's a summoning stone that can be used to summon a beast up to the tier 4 level. It's no joke. Chris even mentions it as a super rare item. Tiraman also intends to make a report to the Dark Ceremony to vouch for the boy's participation. Things are going swimmingly well for the protagonist who got everything he wanted. Both the father and son leave his room so he can rest. Finally, Chris turns his attention to the one spying on him and asks him to come out. The bloodsucker Simon happily makes his presence known, shocked that the boy noticed him, even when Lord Tiraman could not. The chief steward of the Dark Mage clan has been meaning to exchange pleasantries with him. He's one of Lord Noga's top men. Chris suddenly remembers that this bastard is the master of the Blood Shadow Corps. Let's talk about the Blood Shadow Corps for a moment. It's a maddened group of individuals who commit slaughter and terrorism without caring for consequences. These guys don't care if their enemies are the Empire or the Light faction. And their leader, he's an 8-star level demon who cracked into the 9-star level by the Age of Ruin event, becoming the 10th Demon King with his might. This same dude is the reason for their close encounters with death. As for Simon, he just so happens to be the legitimate blood son of the Demon King. Simon is impressed by the young master's performance so far and even reveals his knowledge of Chris wiping out a demon on his own. The revelation is shocking because he clearly killed the surveillance bat, and even then, this dude ended up knowing about what went down. Chris tries to feign ignorance, but the sharp steward isn't ready to let him mess around. He remembers visiting the cave where not even a single trace of the demon was left. This meant that reverse summoning hadn't been used, and it was Chris who dealt the final blow. Now, the only question left is how. How was he able to wipe the demon from existence? Also, the steward makes it very clear he'll report this conversation to his master. Biting back, Chris expresses that he isn't planning on exposing his trump card despite Simon's insistence. He reminds the bloodsucker that he wasn't going to let his secrets out just because of the elder clan head. Observing this side of him, Simon assesses that this boy is like a beast who likes to hide his claws until the end. He finds him even more amusing now. Even more, Chris catches him with his words. You see, there's just no way to tell the difference between erasure and reverse summoning, which is why Tiraman couldn't tell either. But Simon, for some reason, was so adamant in his certainty and use of full erasure. Chris wonders why. Chris finally drops the bombshell against the aggressor, revealing that it was Simon who summoned the demon in the first place, and he mused about the possibility of reporting the truth. After all, the incident did put multiple noble families in harm. Realizing he's cornered, Simon assumes full responsibility. But Chris is fine with not reporting the truth because he's playing the long game of keeping the chief steward in debt. The bloodsucker sharply notes that he's making a deal and gleefully admits that he's done an act of mercy. He vanishes, hoping to meet him again. Though he left, Chris understands that this guy is one of the main variables for the Age of Ruin event. That means he's got to have a good relationship with him so that he bears the capacity to alter the dark future to come. I don't know about you guys, but I'm really loving the main character's actions to fulfill his future plans. Every action is intentional. Marie is finished with their preparations to head back to the main estate. He's surprised to see Alois greeting them to ask if they were about to leave. Policing his title, Chris reminds him to use the word he gave him despite being 2 years younger than the third prince. Anyway, Alois actually came here with a warning. He remembers Chris dubbing them as family, so he thinks it's only right to share this information. Alois tells him to be wary of Lorne's schemes, as he was the main opposing force against his participation in the ceremony, especially since Chris is just a 2-star mage. Then there's the fact that the main family possesses the best elixirs and the strongest techniques, as well as the blessings from demons. In short, Chris is going to be destroyed at their hands if he's not careful. But the confident genius offers a warning to Alois instead, insisting that he does not participate in the upcoming ceremony, for his own good. This puts Alois in a state of rage because he realizes this scoundrel wants to hoard the dark magic for himself. Also, Chris declares that he's going to crush his opponent no matter who stands before him in the dark ceremony. And that's about it for their discussion as he tells Marie to move once again, repeating his warning to Alois. Having reached the house of Count Khazar, Thorn is shocked that his brother left for his training shortly after his return. Apparently, he wants to be left alone until the dark ceremony ritual. Thorn ends up chasing after his brother. Funnily still addressing him by that long-ass title, he wants to duel him to uphold the promise. Chris is rather impressed by his brother's steady growth to reach the mid-2-star level, though he wants to decline in favor of his training. Chris remembers that his brother was also going to participate in the Dark Rite ceremony. He recommends postponing the duel until the end of his training session, and promises Thorn that he won't delay it any longer. Agreeing to the compromise, the kid brother leaves him with an impression of stubbornness. It reminds Chris of a certain person he knew, in his past life. Sitting alone in his room, he understands that he's got an entire month before the event of the ritual. So he bites down on the ebony orb, cringing at the bitter taste as he crashes on his bed. Its dark energy is even more chaotic than he imagined. But to his amazement, he also senses a glimmer of light energy. From within the orb, he wonders if the Karazo beast's emotions made an impression on the orb. He also realizes why the demons have a hard time absorbing the ebony orb. Still, that didn't matter to him as long as he could become one with the light force. Normally, demons wasted this kind of energy, but he wasn't planning on letting an important resource go to waste. At last, he absorbs all of it into his light core, the power changing him to his very essence. Chris closes his eyes shut, implying the completion of the process. The scene cuts away to Lady Idaline, who is handed a report of the Ebony Hunt's investigation by her servant. She's been keeping an eye on Chris, who apparently survived an encounter with a demon during the hunting event. Half a month later, since Christian got back from the Tyraman debacle, Thurn stormed his big brother's room for their promised duel. As soon as Lil Bro entered, he noticed a significant change in his brother's aura. Christian was quite amused that young Thurn came first thing in the morning for a quick pummeling. Lil Bro was speechless. Christian's dominating presence is leagues beyond what it was just half a month ago. His word is his bond. Since Thurn is so desperate for a beating, that wish shall be Christian's command. But they'll only duel if Thurn agrees to give up on the upcoming sacred dark rite upon losing. The rite is a brutal competition. Weaklings should just stay out of it. Incensed at being called a weakling, Thurn drew his blade. Since Lil Bro is blind to brotherly concern, Christian will just pound the lesson into him until he learns. Thurn charged forth with full confidence, only to get beaten so badly that he ended up bedridden. According to the healers, he will need bed rest for half a month, effectively ruling out this year's rite. Christian asked his dad for some alone time with Thurn, and the Count gave them the room for some brotherly talk. Right now, Thurn is pouting like an oversized baby, when he's the one so desperate for a fight. He asked why a big brother would hate seeing their little brother grow. From his perspective, Christian constantly mocks and looks down on his achievements. Now he crossed the line and deliberately injured Thurn bad enough to rule him out of the sacred dark rite. Christian could see that his little bro was about to cry at this rate, so he clarified that they were not on the same page. Here, he's only being harsh to Thurn in hopes of accelerating his growth. This year, competing against him in the rite would be a foolish move. He will just lose his chance to obtain pure dark energy forever. Christian had to be rough and decisive, because of how stubborn the kid can be. But most importantly, pure dark energy doesn't even suit Thurn. He's a better fit for gray dark energy instead. Just like the power of light divides into various types, the power of dark comes in different variants too. Naturally, pure dark energy is widely considered to be the highest attribute. and from right below is the gray dark energy, a type especially suited for cultivating curse magic. Thurn should have progressed enough to notice that he finds it easier to advance in curse magic than swordsmanship. Since Christian can't tell the kid that he saw him become a prolific curse magician, in the future Big Bro had to come up with a decent excuse. He alleged that he could tell his brother's affinity through their spars because he was fighting all out as well. In any case, taking in pure dark energy before mastering gray dark would just prove detrimental in the long run. Of course, absorbing a higher attribute has its perks, but in Thurn's case, he'll just be impeded by its unique properties, effectively slowing down his progress to a crawl. So passing on this year's rite is the right move. This is Christian's sincere advice as an older brother, rooting for his little bro's success. Thurn felt that in his heart. Taking out something from his pocket, Christian gave Lil Bro the ash pill as a gift. Ash pills are extremely valuable, but Christian was just scammed by a scammer, so it's all good. Besides, he had already eaten something much better than just an ash pill. Thurn was moved by his brother's words and actions. He was wrong to think that Christian was just being a jerk. Still, if he was capable of changing for the better, why did he behave like such an imbecile even while their mother was on her deathbed? She had to suffer through so much heartache. Even though Chris wasn't in control of this body at that time, he felt guilty. He was simply a different person who didn't understand back then. A few days later, the cathedral of the de Baron family was filled with rococo luxurious carriages. Coming out of one of them is our boy Christian Van Baron Kazar. It was a long journey, and he needed a good stretch. He knows the main family didn't even bother opening up a warp gate for him, out of spite and pettiness. When he becomes the clan head, these old fools will pay. Since they've arrived at their destination, Marie can freely go out now. She can already imagine having a date, with just the two of them, hearts fluttering, even though banshees don't have hearts. Because the main family is limited to bringing only one companion, Christian has to bring Marie, since they are attached to one another by a pact. As soon as he stepped out of the carriage, he became the silent topic of everyone around. Marie praised his renown, but it felt more like an insult. Every dark right candidate was taken aback when the good-for-nothing bastard of Khazar was personally welcomed by the head butler of the family. Simon eyed him from head to toe and was pleasantly surprised at his noteworthy growth in such a short amount of time. The vampiric servant announced that he came down here under the orders of the elder clan head himself. His old master would like to personally meet the fiend. He's been hearing about it so much these days. Simon could tell that Christian was not even surprised that he was being called up, and so his first stop is the private study of the elder clan head. Standing beside the old man was Aunt Marion. The power and influence of these two cannot be understated. As soon as the old man's eyes peered into him, Christian felt a numbing suffocation. He could barely stand the pressure. He felt like an ant, being crushed under the fingers of a domineering deity. The elder clan head is deliberately exuding excess amounts of dark energy, despite knowing that a noob like Christian shouldn't be able to withstand it. But our boy here is no ordinary noob. He might tremble, but he won't fall. Gritting his teeth through the pressure, he extended a formal greeting to Duke Baron, great sovereign of the Dark Magic clan. When asked if he was surprised by the sudden invitation, Christian honestly answered that he expected the call. He knows that the higher-ups won't be able to ignore a new rising star on the come-up. The elder clan head liked his answer. Neither Marion nor Simon could hold back singing the young man's praises. But the old head himself isn't quite convinced just yet. In his old-ass age, he believes that only time will tell whether a great seed will wither or grow. Who knows, Christian could just be a sapling that wanes as soon as he sprouts above ground. He did not refute the old man's take on managing expectations for the new generation, but he added that he could become a sapling that surpasses every prospect, growing into a great tree. Perhaps he's an abnormality that can even overshadow the greatest of trees. At the very least, he guarantees that the old man won't be disappointed. After a brief pause, the elder clan head smiled and placed his hopes upon Christian. Upon dismissal, he gave a respectful bow. As soon as he's out of the room, Aunt Marion asks the old man what he thinks about the young man. The elder clan head admitted that the kid surpassed his initial expectations, but he also fears that such great talent is fated for a more turbulent path, especially now that bloody winds are blowing towards the magic empire. Still, a small hope sprouted in this room today, and that's one of the rare things that gets the old man's blood pumping. That Khazar child might indeed be able to fulfill the old man's long-desired wish. Night came, and the banquet for the sacred Dark Rites Eve commenced. Servants announced the arrival of Count Khazar's eldest son, Christian Van Baron Khazar. Stepping out of his carriage, he came walking in like royalty. The hot topic of today's whispers is the fool's meeting with the elder clan head earlier in the day. Some people suspect that he might be some kind of boy toy. Instead of being offended, he took these nasty rumors as a compliment to his looks. It doesn't help that Marie is always there to feed his delusions. The first thing Christian spotted was the servers handing out drinks. Finally, he can have some real booze and none of that non-alcoholic stuff back home. Unfortunately, the servers are quite strict in forbidding underage drinking, even though most of these kids have probably killed people before. Instead of alcohol, he has to settle for more ginger ale. What's the point of living with friends? If they're all killjoys and sticklers for rules, Christian is in misery. Everyone's attention was snatched by the arrival of the next batch of guests, the young lords and ladies of the clan. As soon as the gates opened, an air of nobility graced the room. 4 people dressed in ornate fabrics made the entire banquet hall stop and stare in awe. Leading the pack is Eshed de Baron, the second young lord. Following is Julian de Baron, the first young lady. Next is Jupian de Baron, the second young lady. Lastly, there is the third young lord, Isaac de Baron. Some hidden forces were quite disappointed that the first young lord, the madman, was absent. Christian is focused on what Eshed will say to him, the victim of his little game and the one who sullied his reputation in court. Eshed said the worst thing he could possibly say, nothing. He just walked past Christian, as if he had not even registered in his field of vision. The bastard didn't even breathe in his direction. That just proves that one of the leading succession candidates sees him as someone no better than a bug. When first young lady Julian walked past Christian, he found his stare lingering for a long time. Aunt Marion once cryptically warned him about this woman, but he didn't sense anything particularly out of the ordinary with her. He'll just figure out her deal later. He's done enough recon on the competition for today. Just as he was about to walk back to his accommodation to prepare for the long day tomorrow, a butler approached him. He introduced himself as a summoner working for young Master Lorne. Hearing that name soured Christian's expression. When he asked what's up, the butler had the nerve to imply that someone unworthy of participating in tomorrow's sacred dark rite snuck in. He allegedly worries that an underqualified participant might cause an unnecessary accident for others sullying the name of the Great Dark Clan. It's obvious that this old fart is trouble. 4 is practically screaming that Christian is trash-tier garbage, and he's not even trying to hide who's pulling the strings, that curly-haired brat young Master Lowen smirking from the balcony. Christian isn't vibing with this weak attempt at provocation. If you're going to be a toxic bully, at least have the guts to step up and handle your own business. Whatever, he'll save the real lesson for their little heart-to-heart tomorrow. But right now, it's playtime. He decides to absolutely humble this cocky summoner just for the laughs. He doesn't even bother drawing a weapon, daring 4 to pop off with his party tricks. Christian doesn't need a wand to school a clown like this. As the temperature drops, the entire banquet hall stops mid-sip to watch the drama unfold. The first young lady cracks a cryptic smile at the chaos, and seconds later every guest's jaw hits the floor, witnessing the impossible scene. 4 is on his knees begging for mercy, frantically trying to shield himself from his own spirits turning against him. Meanwhile, Christian is literally chilling, using 1 ghost as a throne, and 2 others as his personal butlers. The crowd is shook. Nobody has ever seen a flex like this. 4 tried to jump him by summoning those spirits, but instead of ripping Christian to shreds, they betrayed their master instantly. With a single flick of his wrist, Christian hijacked the summons so fast, it looked like he used an admin cheat code. He even clocked Lowen trying to interfere with magic, but honestly, it was pathetic. The curly-haired heir looks ready to combust. From pure humiliation, getting shown up like this is a bad look for the clan's future leader. If he had beef, he should have just thrown hands himself instead of hiding. Lowen, shameless as ever, insists he had nothing to do with the attack, but nobody is buying that lie while his lackey is getting wrecked on the floor, praying for his boss to save him. Bored of this circus, Christian decides to wrap it up and bounce. He'll deal with these losers at the sacred dark rite. That cowardly brat has a serious reality check coming tomorrow. Fast forward to the big day, the sacred dark rite. The tension is thick enough to cut with a knife, but Christian, he looks like he was dragged out of bed 5 minutes ago and is seriously regretting it. Alois Tiramin is in the crowd, ignoring Christian's warnings to stay away, but you can't blame the guy for being headstrong. The prestige of the rite is too massive to ignore. Finally, the last candidate struts in. It's Lowen trying to act tough despite yesterday's L. Christian is practically itching to put the kid in his place. Now that the squad is assembled, a pint-sized guy named Sebastian, the vice butler of the main house, steps up as their tour guide to the sacred grounds. He taps the floor with his staff, and reality literally shatters, revealing an endless staircase plunging into a dark void. It looks like a one-way trip to hell. No one expected the exam to be underground, but Christian realizes it's just high-level illusion magic, manipulating the space. He's the only one who clocks it, while Sebastian starts descending the stairs, like he's on a Sunday stroll. The terrified candidates scramble to follow, desperate not to get left behind in the dark. After a drop that feels like it takes forever, they hit the Hall of Recursion. Sebastian keeps moving, at a brutal pace. The participants are grinding to keep up, but most of them are hitting a wall physically. The terrain is a nightmare of steep slopes and twisting paths. Even Lowen, the supposed favorite to win, is gasping for air. To make matters worse, Sebastian is channeling serious hunter exam energy. He looks like he could run for days without breaking a sweat. Then he raises the stakes, fall behind, and the floor disappears. Instantly, two stragglers at the back scream as the ground vanishes, sending them plummeting into the abyss. The other exhausted heirs don't even have time to process the horror because Sebastian shifts gears from a jog to a full sprint. His little legs are flying, and the pack starts thinning out rapidly. Lowen glances back to mock the dropouts, feeling superior to the weaklings. Until jumpscare warning, he sees the handsome devil Christian locked in right behind him. The guy is an absolute unit, not even sweating while everyone else is running on fumes. Now that they're in the home stretch, Christian decides to shatter Lowen's ego, mocking him for being all bark and no bite while he wheezes for oxygen. For a direct heir, Lowen is performing like an NPC right now. All those expensive resources fed to him since childhood, and this is the best he can do. In Christian's eyes, these kids are total fools, destroying their bodies, running in circles inside a loser's illusion instead of using their brains to break the spell. It's the stupidest thing you can do while everyone's doing deadly cardio. Chris's stamina is not even slightly depleted. All he did was tweak one spell, and he's practically invincible in this place. Sebastian took note of the only participant, who saw through the tricks of this culling process. It seems like some higher-ups have already clued him in about the young master of the Khazar family. Finally, the 4 remaining survivors reach the end of the track. 3 of them gasp for air, while Chris chills like a villain. Alois can't fathom how one can be unscathed after that hellish march. To mess with him, Chris advised Alois to simply train his body more. Suddenly, a dancing light and an unsettling voice demanded everyone's attention. The voice expounded that this scary ground contains the purest of dark energy. Thus, it's aptly called the sacred darkness. The light took the form of an unsettling woman that some of you would call Mommy in a heartbeat. She is Ryu, manager of the sacred ground. Today, the young masters and mistresses will be attempting to obtain the great pure darkness, just like the 3rd-ranked Demon King, the Dark Destroyer progenitor of the Dark Magic clan, once did. Raising her hand, Ryu drew winding lines of light on the floor. Since there is not enough darkness for a 4-way share, their worthiness will be tested by the demon beasts waiting in each separate pathway. Simply put, they must traverse a random path, and whoever arrives first can claim the ultimate prize. If that's the case, unforeseen mishaps could occur between competitors during the rite. Ryu explained that conflicts are not grounds for disqualification. Since everyone will be taking a different path, chances of a clash are slim to none. But on the off chance that a fight does arise, a full-on brawl is discouraged, for the more time they waste bickering, the better it will serve the other competitors. Ryu's final advice for success is to focus on one's own safety. After a count of 5, she wished them good fortune and signaled the start of the race. Sebastian turned to his coworker to try betting some blood on who'd win, but Ryu wasn't interested. She's already gone. The seemingly unshakable vice butler was incensed. In one of the pathways, Lauren eventually encountered his first beast horde. It was a pack of flame-spitting, 4-eyed wolves. They howled and lunged at the curly-headed freak. Coating his hand with dark energy, he faced the pack head-on. In just a few seconds, he unleashed a chain of moves that targeted each wolf's fatal spot, killing each one in a single hit. He correctly gauged that these pups are low-ranking 2-star magic creatures at best. They're practically cannon fodder against an upper 2-star fiend like Lauren. Currently, he's more interested in imagining Christian having a hard time on the path he took. According to the rules, each path is supposed to have the same distance and trials laid out for fairness' sake. However, the curly-headed freak bribed a mage to fill Christian's path with some stronger demon beasts. The bastard of Khazar will surely come across some deadly foes, and his tragic fate will look like an accident. Since any death that occurs during the sacred dark rite is ruled out as an unavoidable casualty, Lauren's plan should be ironclad. A few minutes later, Lauren arrived at the door of the sacred ground. Seeing that no one was around, he celebrated his win. He failed to notice someone else standing near the door. Christian had been lounging in this spot for a while. Now he's been waiting for Lauren's slow ass to arrive to the point of boredom, knowing that his plan should have worked. Lauren was confused. He accidentally blurted out that Christian's path should have been crawling with much stronger monsters. Lauren really is just a stupid kid who can't even keep his plot a secret. Christian suspected some sort of tampering at the level of difficulty in his trial, so it's nice to hear some confirmation from the culprit. Lauren tried to act all high and mighty, like he always did as a main family member, but that shit won't work here, he cried. That clashing with competitors during the rite is taboo. While charging his fists with dark energy trying to play dirty, he lunged forward, trying to knock Christian out with a haymaker. Christian leaned backward, making the punch go wide, keeping his eyes open. He studied the prick's magic combat art. He assessed that it's a combat technique that explodes potent magic power. At extremely close range, it can also be used to snap an opponent's joints. Following the first missed attack, Lauren started throwing random punches at breakneck speeds. He is pushing his attack rate to the limits, but Christian is an expert at acting like a slippery rat. Finally, the bastard of Khazar seemingly dropped his guard, and an opening presented itself. Being the amateur that he is, Lauren bit as he closed in. Christian took delight in talking trash. Lauren was easily baited by a false opening, leading to a quick arm grab, quickly shifting the arrogant young master's momentum against himself. Christian applied increasing pressure on the arm. With a smile, he warned Lauren to suppress his cry as best as he could. For the next few minutes were about to be hellish agony. The pressure on the arm lock steadily increased until the sound of joints snapping echoed. In front of the dark sacred ground, a guttural scream of agony bellowed. A few hours later, the last of the final four arrived, panting exhausted from the waves upon waves of monsters he had to clear. It was none other than Alois. Much to his surprise, he found Christian casually waving at him at the finish line. Lying unconscious at his feet were the other survivors. Christian was quite annoyed that Alois was so ass that he had to wait for so long. Since they are acquainted with one another, he gives the kid a choice to faint on his own, or if he needs a little help. Quickly realizing what was happening, Alois gathered dark energy in his palms ready to defend himself. Since they last met, he hasn't been sitting on his ass and doing nothing. He improved too. Unfortunately for him, no amount of training could bridge the gap between a god and an ant. Leaving his victims here for the elders to find should be fine. 5 years from now, the first great war against the Alliance will inevitably break out. By that time, Christian needs to have the dark magic clan within his grasp. To do that, he must be greedy. He cannot share even an ounce of sacred darkness with anyone. Now that the competition has been taken care of, it's time to claim the prize. It is time to take possession of the fabled sacred darkness. The power that grants a fiend the possibility of becoming a true transcendent is right behind this door. Back in his youth, the Elder Clan head was known as a genius, who absorbed 80% of the sacred darkness. He went on to become one of the strongest life forms even in the age of demon monarchs. On the other hand, the Dark Destroyer, the progenitor of the clan, absorbed more than 90% of pure dark energy and became the Demon King. Logic dictates that absorbing 100% of this stuff should push Christian above those legends. If he can tame this globe of pure darkness, he will have the potential to exceed even the Demon Emperor. As soon as his palm touched the globe, a surge of darkness filled his veins and arteries. While he's inside the sacred ground, the higher-ups of the clan are in shambles. They just found out that every single prospect has been eliminated. Aside from the Khazar bastard, even young Master Luan is beaten within an inch of his life. It's a disaster. Of course, the old bats immediately jumped to the conclusion that Christian must have used a trick, or a banned magic tool, and demanded a thorough investigation before things got out of hand. The second young lady Jupian Debaran spoke up. She believes that the cheating bastard won't be able to enter the sacred ground anyway. Given that he hasn't got out for 2 whole days, it must mean that he's already dead. They refused to believe that the guy could absorb an exorbitant quantity of sacred darkness non-stop. Even the Elder Clan head ran into an upper limit. Back in his days, they can't see a world where Christian could do better. Once the sacred ground is done with him, there won't even be a corpse left. In truth, Jupian is seething in anger right now. On the off chance that Christian is still alive, she intends to kill him herself. You see, when her father died during his battle against the Alliance, Luan and Jupian were adopted by their uncle Viscount Langham. The siblings' footing within the clan is already shaky. Now that Luan failed to receive sacred darkness, it is bound to become shakier. No one will support her little brother as a serious succession candidate anymore. Jupian will make sure that the bastard of Khazar pays for this indignity. She's crazy. Even the clan servants are talking about the good-for-nothing stuck inside the sacred grounds. The consensus is that he's already dead punished for being greedy and not knowing his place. His maid, the Banshee, has been waiting for her master without rest. The servants joke that the ghost of the master was bound to meet the ghostly maid soon. Annoyed by their rude chatter, Marie nearly beheaded one of the servants. While her heart is restless, as she waits for the young master, she won't tolerate nosy bitches disparaging his name. If she hears any more of that bullshit, Marie threatens to turn them into ghost puppets. In truth, Marie just wants to see her master's face again. A man who makes a maiden wait is not cool at all. Speaking of the man subject to speculation in the outside world, Christian is currently floating in an unending void of darkness that chokes the breath from his throat. He just reached the 70% mark of absorption. The process turned out to be a lot harder than he expected, but he's determined to endure it no matter what. He's still far from 90%, the point where the real test begins. Even though he's eager, he can't take in too much power and exceed his limit, which will shatter his core. He can't die in this place. Without changing the course of history, he is the MC. Come to think of it, there is one thing that can help him immensely: a dragon heart. Dragons have the largest natural container of power. In his first life, he learned how to imitate the intricacies of a dragon's heart for just a few minutes, as he begins changing the structure of his heart into a mythical being. The rate of darkness absorption dramatically increases after a few minutes of relentless suction. He started approaching his absolute limit. It was then that a familiar voice offered some assistance. Manifesting in front of him was the first seat of Gehenna's seventh realm, the enigmatically gorgeous Mafina. Natural law suggests that a high-ranking demon should not be able to form a body in this space, but Mafina explained that the power of demons is tied to darkness. Forming a body made of pure darkness poses no difficulty to her at all. It also gives her the unique power to help Christian in this instance, without any conditions, no strings attached. In his crusade against demonic beings, Christian had never heard of such a transaction before. Mafina laughed at his uncertainty and insisted that she was just moving on a fleeting whim. There are no deeper intentions to her actions. All he has to do is take her hand and take in all of the sacred darkness. 1 week later, the elder clan head is having tea time outdoors with Simon attending to his needs. Even the old man is waiting on the possibility that the kid is still alive given that there has been no news for an entire week. Aunt Marion could not make sense of why such a smart boy would fall for such reckless greed. Simon relayed that most of the higher-ups, especially Viscount Langham, agree that they should make a ruling soon. The Viscount wishes to close the pathway leading to the sacred ground soon. They're just waiting for the elder clan head's sign-off. Well, the old man doesn't like being pressured by wicked brats. Calling Simon a blood drinker like it's a slur, he asked his loyal servant about his opinion on the matter. Simon honestly set the reckless child's survival odds close to 0. Still, he can't seem to shake the feeling that Christian might surprise them. He is quite an interesting young master, after all. With that assessment, the elder clan head came to the decision for a 1-day extension, using his authority. Viscount Langham shall wait for 1 more day before closing the gates. Aunt Marion quietly sighed in relief. Within the next 24 hours, we'll see if our boy can break the first Demon King's record, or not. Mafina urges Christian to grab her hand before everything slips away, but he turns her down without hesitation. She finds him ridiculous while thinking he should already know that humans aren't allowed to carry more than a tiny fraction of this power. Yet, Christian, with a determination in his eyes, reminds her she seems to be missing something important. They are standing in a world where concepts shape reality. She stares at him, unable to believe it, and wonders if this is demonization. It is, after all, the forbidden pinnacle of the mystic magic clan's arts, where a mortal becomes a demon for a brief moment to unleash terrifying strength. A technique as deadly for the user as it is powerful. Lena had once perished under the weight of it, her life shattered the moment she cast that spell. But Christian considers another angle, that if he removes the parts of the spell that amplify dark energy, can't he shape this world into a vessel while capturing the power without paying the usual price? Step by step, it begins to work. Using this container, he pushes beyond 90%, pulling every thread of the sacred darkness into himself. Mafina's eyes widen, unable to accept what she sees. A black crescent forming. A mere human, no more than an insect in this vast world, leaving his fragile body behind. She can only wonder who he truly is, beneath that human skin. Christian looks toward the demon and remarks, while reminding it with quiet confidence, that he is a genius. The demon might keep rotting here for eternity, but he plans to leave. As he steps away, Mafina calls out while promising they will meet again in another time, but Christian only finds her words annoying. While echoing in the air like an unwelcome promise, the demon begins to laugh. A harsh, wild, grating sound. And Christian thinks to himself that he must look insane if they expect him to come back to this place willingly. The demon's laughter is harsh in the emptiness, and Christian moves on while brushing off the sound. While leaving, he starts wondering how long he has been here. By his guess, it has been around a week, and the main family must be in chaos by now. Unable to find him, a small smirk creeps onto his face as he thinks of something amusing while deciding that it's the perfect moment to pull a little prank. With that, he takes off his mask while stepping out of the realm. Soon he arrives before Lord Viscount Macfield. At his side, they inform the young master that Christian has returned, and people around them react instantly. Shocked that the brat has survived, Viscount Langham, the acting head of the Dark Magic clan, demands the details. His voice low but commanding. It is explained that Christian barely survived while clinging to life by a thin thread. Now deeply exhausted, the healer, while sensing pure dark energy within him, reports that the energy is in chaos. While swirling violently without order, everyone quickly realizes it will be nearly impossible for Christian to control this dark energy properly in the future. They quietly acknowledged that there was no way someone like him could have absorbed more than 80% of the sacred darkness. All that precious sacred darkness now feels wasted. Because of what they see as his selfish hunger, someone suggests he should be held responsible for this, while addressing Lord Viscount directly. The Viscount takes note of it while dismissing the gathered voices with a flick of his hand, and ends the meeting for the day while sending them away. Afterward, he turns to Macfield, questioning if the reports are accurate. Macfield confirms it while explaining he saw Christian beside the healer, and it was clear something was wrong with his core. The Viscount then adds that Luan and Macfield agrees on it. In reality, Luan was meant to be the young lord, the sacrificial pawn, the key to their plan with the Poison Magic Clan. Their grand plan to wipe out the Poison Magic Clan alongside Jupian now has to be delayed, and the Viscount quietly notes how even their father has begun to show interest in Christian, while understanding that one small fish can disrupt the flow of an entire river. Finally, the Viscount instructs McField to bring Christian down to the Darkness Hall the next day. With that, he deadpans that he will announce Christian's upcoming disposal before all the vassals tomorrow. Next day, Christian is standing there in the palace, hands in his pockets while thinking how hard they're trying to toss him aside. He glances around at everyone gathered while noting how they've pulled in. All these important faces clearly ready to put on a show. The Lord Viscount brings up the topic, while asking Christian if he even knows what wrongs he pulled during the sacred dark rite. Christian nods, not bothered at all, and the Viscount pushes him to spell it out. Christian shrugs while explaining that his peers can't live up to their dark magic clan bloodline, so honestly, he should have hit them even harder but didn't get the chance. Someone in the room chimes in while asking if those peers can still walk. The Viscount waves them off, while focusing back on Christian. He points out that Christian's real mess-up is using up the dark magic clan's precious resource, without delivering the results they expected. Christian tilts his head while asking what kind of results they mean exactly. The Viscount says flatly they expected a purity of at least 70%. Christian raises a brow while wondering aloud what sort of punishment he's looking at if he didn't hit 70% or higher. The Viscount lays it out that Christian won't get any dark magic techniques. He'll be banned from the main house for good and forget about inheriting the house of Count Khazar. Christian leans back while asking how exactly they're planning to judge his results, while pointing out that even the clan head seems unsure how to measure it. Eshid, who's sitting nearby, raises his hand, while calling Christian dear younger brother. He offers a solution while saying that even if Christian's core is a mess, a dark energy clash can still test how pure his energy really is. Since Luan has absorbed 70% of the sacred darkness, if Christian can beat him, that should prove Christian has pulled off something bigger. Everyone knows this dark energy clash is a straightforward, brutal way to see whose dark energy is stronger. Same amount of dark energy Christian with purer energy crushes the other instantly. When energy of similar ranks clashes, the higher purity always wins and it can easily wreck the loser's core. Christian thinks Ishid is even sneakier than he gave him credit for, but agrees to the challenge. He tells them that if he proves himself here, the Lord Clan head better back him up and let him take on the test of a young lord. Ishid agrees while saying it doesn't matter if someone's from the main family or not.